Tonight we step into the brutal reality of medieval warfare, not through bright banners or polished legends, but through the dim edge of a soldier's last quiet evening. In 1996, archaeologists studying the mass grave at Towton in northern England found skulls marked by repeated weapon blows, evidence examined by researchers connected with the University of Bradford and discussed widely in battlefield archaeology. The bones did not speak of romance. They spoke of cold, panic, close steel, and men trying very hard to remain alive. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as the firelight settles, tell us where you're watching from and what the local time is outside your window. You are not yet on the battlefield, thus their mercy still remains. You are in the camp beneath a sky without electric light, where darkness feels heavier than it should. The air smells of damp wool, wood smoke, horse sweat, boiled oats, and iron rubbed with fat to keep rust away. Somewhere close by, a man coughs into his sleeve and pretends it is nothing. Another sharpens a blade with slow, careful strokes, as though patience alone might save him tomorrow. Around you, soldiers move with the strange calm of men who have run out of choices. Some are professionals, hardened by campaigns and older than they look. Some are levied men, pulled from fields and workshops, holding weapons that feel heavier than farming tools. Others are servants, archers, grooms, cooks, carters, boys who have followed older brothers, and men who have lied about their courage so often that they now believe it a little. The camp does not look like a painted manuscript. It is crowded, noisy, muddy, and deeply practical. Ropes sag between wagons, buckets disappear, men argue over bread. A horse bites at its tether, someone laughs too loudly, because laughter can cover fear for a few blessed moments. You feel the ground through thin soles. It is cold. The first rule of staying alive is not bravery. That sounds disappointing, almost rude, but there it is. The first rule is preparation, and medieval soldiers know this with a grim intimacy. They check straps, buckles, cords, seams, and edges. They adjust padded garments under mail or plate. They test helmet liners. They tighten belts that will soon carry more weight than comfort allows. A spear shaft is inspected for cracks. A bowstring is kept dry. A knife is slid where the hand can find it quickly. The smallest objects become matters of life and death. A missing lace can loosen armour. A loose buckle can expose the throat. A wet bowstring can turn an archer into a frightened spectator. Records from medieval military accounts confirm that armies were logistical creatures before they were heroic ones. Payrolls, equipment lists, and household ordinances show soldiers needing wages, food, carts, smiths, leatherworkers, and constant repair. Oxford historians have long emphasised that medieval war was not simply a storm of violence. It was an organised burden, carried by thousands of ordinary bodies. You notice how much of survival depends on other people. A man cannot easily fasten every plate alone. He cannot see whether the back of his helmet sits correctly. He cannot know if his mail is torn beneath the arm unless someone checks. Even fear becomes social. Men watch one another closely, measuring whether a trembling is private or contagious. The wealthy fight with advantages stitched into every layer. Better armour, better horses, better servants, better food, better chances of capture instead of death. The poor carry courage too, of course, but courage does not stop a blade like tempered steel does. Medieval battle can be brave and unequal at the same time. That is one of its colder truths. Still, armour is not magic. It is heat, weight, sweat, bruising, restricted breath, and chafed skin. It saves lives by turning fatal cuts into survivable impacts. It also exhausts the person inside it. A soldier must learn how to move before terror demands movement. He must learn how to fall, rise, turn, and keep his balance with panic pressing against his ribs. You hear a priest murmuring near a wagon. Men gather around him, not all of them devout, not all of them sincere. Yet in this hour, sincerity is not inspected too closely. A blessing is taken like bread, like water, like a spare cord for a helmet. Faith gives shape to fear. It tells the mind that the chaos has a ceiling, even if the body doubts it. There is a scholarly debate among historians from places such as Yale and Cambridge over how much medieval soldiers understood battle as personal religious trial, social obligation, paid labour, or simple survival. The answer, inconveniently, may be all of these at once. A man can want wages, fear damnation, obey his lord, and still wish desperately to go home. The camp grows quieter, but not peaceful. Quiet is not peace here. It is listening. You listen for the sounds that tell you the army still holds together. Horses stamping and guards calling softly, wheels settling in mud, the clink of metal, the low murmur of men pretending to sleep. In this world, silence can be a warning, but ordinary noise is reassurance. It means the great body of the host has not yet broken apart. One quirky tidbit, half comic and half miserable, belongs in this dim place. Medieval soldiers sometimes believed odd remedies could protect them from wounds, sickness, or bad fortune. Charms, saints' tokens, written prayers, and small relics might hang beside practical knives and eating spoons. A man could trust in sharpened steel and a scrap of holy writing at the same time. Human beings are wonderfully untidy like that. You may smile at him gently. He would not care, because tomorrow, every layer matters, cloth matters, leather matters, prayer matters, the man beside you matters, even the meal matters, because an empty stomach weakens the hand. Soldiers learned that staying alive began long before anyone shouted, charged, or loosed the first arrow. Survival began with sleep, if sleep could be found. It began with dry socks, tight knots, and knowing where your comrade stood. The commanders think in lines, fields, roads, scouts, banners, and timing. The soldier thinks in smaller circles. Can he see his captain's flag? Can he keep his shield arm from tiring? Is the man to his left steady? Will his helmet slide when sweat runs into his eyes? Will his feet hold in the mud? You begin to understand the strange intimacy of medieval warfare. Men did not usually die at a clean distance, under abstract fire from unseen machines. They often faced breath, eyes, teeth, curses, and the wet closeness of bodies driven together. To survive that, they needed more than weapon skill. They needed discipline so deep it could function while thought collapsed. Some veterans know this already. You see it in their hands. They do not boast as much as younger men expect. They eat slowly, check equipment twice, and sleep when they can. They conserve energy with almost religious seriousness. They understand that panic wastes strength. They understand that pride can get a man killed before noon. The younger soldiers watch them, pretending not to. This too is training. In a world where formal instruction may be brief or uneven, imitation becomes a quiet school. How to wrap a foot, how to oil mail, how to stand near a fire without blocking smoke into another man's face, how to answer fear with tasks. A veteran tells a boy to drink now, not later. The boy obeys. There is no grand speech, not in the way later stories prefer. Perhaps a noble will speak before battle, and perhaps some men will hear him. But here in the darkness, survival sounds like smaller advice. Keep your line, stay low under arrows, do not chase too soon. Watch the banners, keep your knife, help me up if I fall. That last one matters more than songs admit. Falling in medieval combat can be fatal even before a blade finds you. Mud, crowd pressure, hooves, panic, and armour can turn the ground into an enemy. A man knocked down in a press of bodies may never rise, so survival depends on hands reaching down, if there is time and if fear has not made everyone selfish. You think of the battlefield waiting beyond the camp. It is not yet red or loud, it is only land, innocent in the dark, a field, a ridge, a road, a village edge, perhaps a shallow stream. By tomorrow, men may name it forever. Tonight, it has no opinion. The grass is wet, the stones are cold, the stars look almost insultingly calm. For a moment, the medieval world feels very close, not as costume, not as fantasy, as a human problem. How does a soldier stay alive when medicine is limited, armour is uneven, command is imperfect, and fear is contagious? He survives by belonging to a system that is fragile but real. He survives by habit, equipment, luck, obedience, and the stubborn refusal to be the first man to break. He survives because someone made a buckle properly, because a cook boiled grain, because a smith fixed a rivet, because his friend did not run. Perhaps that is the hidden truth beneath the brutality. Medieval warfare was not only a contest of kings and banners, it was a test of small arrangements under impossible pressure. The body had to be covered, the stomach had to be filled, the feet had to keep moving, the mind had to be given something to hold, and in the last hour before sleep, you feel that truth settle over the camp like mist. No one here knows which names will be remembered. Most will never enter a chronicle. Yet each man, wrapped in wool and worry, has already begun his battle for survival. Not with a charge, not with a cry, but with a knot tightened in the dark, a weapon placed within reach, and one more breath taken beneath the medieval stars. Your hands find the weight before your thoughts find courage. A soldier learns this quickly, because armour is never merely worn. It presses, grips, rubs, warms, burdens, protects, and reminds the body that survival has a price. You stand among men fastening their defences piece by piece, and the camp becomes a quiet workshop of fear. Cloth tightens, leather creaks, rings of mail whisper against one another like rain on dry leaves. The first layer is often the least glorious, and perhaps the most important. Thick padding sits beneath metal, absorbing force and softening the cruel honesty of impact. Without it, mail can stop an edge and still drive pain deep into flesh and bone. A padded garment can turn a killing cut into a bruise, or a cracked rib into something a man survives. Very heroic. Yes. The secret champion is laundry with ambition. Records from medieval armouries and surviving garments confirm that textile armour was not poor nonsense. It was engineered practicality. Researchers at institutions such as Oxford and Leeds have examined surviving examples, manuscript images, and written accounts showing how quilted defences protected bodies across social ranks. Steel draws the eye, but layered cloth often did the patient work. You feel the linen and wool beneath your fingers. It is stiff with use. It smells faintly of sweat, smoke, grease, and rain trapped from another day. Someone has repaired a tear with uneven stitching. Someone else has stuffed extra padding near the shoulder, where a blow once landed badly. These garments remember, not in words, of course, but in stains, seams, flattened stuffing, and patches that tell a private history. Then comes mail, if a soldier is fortunate enough to have it. Thousands of interlinked rings slide over the body with a cold, liquid heaviness. The sound is strangely beautiful, though the man beneath it may disagree by sunrise. Mail protects well against cuts, especially the sweeping slash of a blade. Yet it is less comforting against crushing force, narrow points, and the blunt persuasion of a mace. A good mail shirt can hang from shoulders like a patient animal. It pulls downward all day. It makes walking harder, breathing warmer, and running less poetic than songs suggest. Still, men valued it enormously, because the alternative was skin-meeting iron without negotiation. A soldier might inherit mail, rent it, loot it, repair it, pawn it, or dream of owning it. Survival had a market value. Plate armour enters the scene with more confidence. By the later Middle Ages, shaped plates of steel protect limbs, chest, hands, and head with increasing sophistication. The knight in full harness is not a clumsy statue. Properly fitted plate allows surprising movement, though it remains tiring and expensive. Yale military historians have noted that the development of plate armour was a practical answer to stronger bows, heavier weapons, and the changing mathematics of force. The helmet deserves its own quiet attention. Your skull is not sentimental. It does not appreciate drama. It prefers not to meet a sword, axe, arrow, stone, hoof, or falling body. Medieval helmets vary widely, from simple iron caps to enclosed bassinets and great helms that turn the face into a hidden chamber. Each design gives something and takes something away. A closed helmet protects the face, but it narrows sight and muffles sound. Breath gathers inside. Heat grows. Sweat runs into the eyes, and the world becomes a slit of light and noise. A more open helmet allows vision and air, yet exposes cheek, jaw, and mouth. Every choice is a bargain. Medieval warfare is full of bargains made with pain. A soldier tests the chin strap. Too loose, and the helmet shifts at the worst moment. Too tight, and breathing becomes a private argument. He shakes his head, then nods, then asks another man to strike lightly near the rim. It seems absurdly calm, this little ritual. Yet it is the kind of calm that keeps teeth in place. Here, the mainstream fact is blunt and useful. Archaeological studies of battlefield injuries, including work on remains from Towton, show that head wounds were common and often repeated. The skulls reveal close combat, targeted blows, and the ugly persistence of attackers ensuring a fallen enemy would not rise. In narrative terms, the helmet is not decoration. It is a small roof over a fragile house. Even so, armour does not make a man invulnerable. It changes the map of danger. Blades search for gaps at armpit, groin, visor, knee, wrist, and throat. Points slide toward joints, polearms hook, pull, and hammer. Daggers made for armour fighting may seek seams with patient cruelty. In close combat, survival becomes an argument over inches. You begin to notice the spaces between protections. The body is not a wall, it is a moving puzzle of hinges, breath, and weakness. The better the armour, the more skilled the enemy must become. And medieval warriors were not fools. They adapted. They learned to strike where steel thinned. They learned to knock a man down, then finish the problem at ground level. Very practical. Not very chivalric. A quirky tidbit drifts through the ranks with the smell of oil and wool. Some warriors decorated armour with saints, beasts, strange symbols, or family colours. But others feared too much shine might draw attention. A polished helmet could declare status, or pride, and ransom value. It could also say, quite clearly, "Please hit me first." Fashion has always had consequences. Shields remain vital for many soldiers, especially infantry. Wood, leather, linen, rawhide, and metal fittings combine into portable shelter. A shield is not simply held. It is angled, braced, lifted, turned, and used to shove. It catches arrows, glances blades, hides movement, and helps a frightened man feel that some part of the world is still under his control. You grip one now, and your forearm begins to complain. The weight seems manageable at first, then time lengthens. The shoulder tightens, fingers stiffen. A shield can save your life, but it asks for endurance in return. During a long advance or under missile fire, the arm becomes a battlefield long before the enemy is close. The scholarly debate here is quieter but important. Specialists from Cambridge, Princeton, and other universities still discuss how effective different armour types were against particular weapons in real conditions. Controlled tests can show penetration, force, and resistance, but battle adds mud, fatigue, fear, bad fitting, poor visibility, and the inconvenience of someone trying to kill you from the side. That uncertainty matters. It keeps us honest. Armour is often imagined as a simple answer to violence. Put on metal, survive. Yet the truth is more intimate. Armour must fit the person, the climate, the campaign, the horse, the formation, and the purse. Too little protection invites disaster. Too much weight invites exhaustion. A man overloaded may live through the first blow and fail to escape the second. Heat can become an enemy inside protection. In summer fields, the padded layers drink sweat. Mail warms under the sun. Plate turns touch into discomfort. Thirst grows. Breathing hard inside armour can become frightening, especially when the line begins to move and men press close. Survival requires not only protection from weapons, but management of the body inside the shell. Cold brings different trouble. Metal bites the fingers. Damp padding chills the skin. Wet straps stiffen. A poorly dried garment breeds sores and sickness. The soldier who neglects maintenance may discover that armour fails slowly before it fails suddenly. Rust, rot, broken rivets, frayed cords, and cracked leather are patient enemies. They wait without banners. So men care for equipment with a seriousness that can look almost tender. They oil, metal, scrape mud, stitch cloth, replace straps, hammer dents, and guard helmets from theft. In a world where good armour may cost more than many people own, protection is property, status, and second skin. Losing it can mean losing both safety and place. You see class written across bodies. One man has fitted plates, mail at the joints, good gauntlets, and a helmet lined properly. Another has a padded jack, a dented cap, and a shield repaired so often it resembles a family argument. Yet both must stand under the same sky. Both must hear the same arrows. Both must hope that whatever covers them is enough. And perhaps that is the unsettling truth hidden inside the shine of medieval armour. It does not erase vulnerability. It frames it. It teaches the soldier where he is guarded and where he remains open. It gives confidence, but not certainty. It gives time, and sometimes time is life. As the last straps are tightened, the men look larger than before. Less human, perhaps. More capable, more doomed, more protected, more burdened. The armour changes how they move, but not what they are beneath it. Beneath the padding and metal, there is still skin. There is still breath. There is still a heart listening too closely to the morning. The soldier survives because steel bends the odds. Cloth absorbs the shock. A helmet turns death aside by a finger's width. A shield catches what the eye barely sees. Yet every piece depends on care, fit, strength, money, and luck, especially luck. And in the dimness, as buckles settle and mail softly shifts, you understand that medieval armour is not a promise. It is a question asked in iron. Will this be enough? The road teaches hunger more faithfully than any commander teaches courage. You feel it first as a small emptiness beneath the ribs, then as a dull companion walking inside you. Medieval armies are not fed by glory. They are fed by carts, mills, ovens, barrels, animals, markets, theft, and the nervous cooperation of villages that would prefer to be left alone. The army moves like a hungry town with weapons. Men carry what they can, but what they can carry never feels like enough. Bread hardens in sacks. Cheese sweats inside cloth. Dried peas rattle. Salted meat grows tough as old leather. Ale, small beer, or watered wine may be safer than uncertain water. But supplies never flow as neatly as plans pretend. You smell the march before you understand it. Mud crushed by hundreds of feet. Horse dung warming in the road. Smoke from distant cooking fires. Damp leather. Wet wool. Unwashed bodies. The sour breath of tired men who have eaten onions. Stale bread. And fear. It is not the scent of legend. It is the scent of survival with poor ventilation. Records from royal accounts, campaign rolls, and household documents confirm that medieval armies required staggering amounts of food. Scholars at Oxford and Yale have shown how planning a campaign meant calculating bread, fodder, wages, transport, and timing. A sword may win a moment, but grain sustains the movement that brings the sword there. The soldier learns that staying alive begins with the stomach. An unfed man tires faster, thinks worse, stumbles more often, and quarrels over smaller insults. Hunger can turn discipline brittle. A formation may break from terror, yes, but it can also weaken through missed meals, bad water, and days of marching with blistered feet. Very glamorous, this business of empire. Someone always needs oats. The horses eat more than the men, and they are less patient about it. A cavalry force depends on fodder, grazing, grooms, spare animals, and constant care. Without horses, knights lose speed, scouts lose reach, carts stand useless, and commanders become trapped inside their own ambition. A warhorse is power made flesh, but flesh must chew. You watch men cut grass, gather hay, carry sacks, and argue with carters. You see how much of warfare is bent backs and sore hands. Soldiers may be remembered for battles, yet they spend many more hours searching for flour, hauling water, guarding baggage, and waiting for someone important to decide which road looks least disastrous. Water is a quieter danger. Clear water is not always clean, and foul water is not always avoidable. Men drink from streams, wells, ponds, ditches, and barrels that have known better days. Sickness travels with armies like an unpaid soldier. It does not need a banner. It enters through the gut, the skin, the breath, and the crowded places where men sleep too close. A mainstream fact from medical history is especially grim. Dysentery and other camp diseases often killed more soldiers than weapons during long campaigns. Researchers in military history departments, including those at Stanford and Cambridge, have repeatedly emphasized that pre-modern war was a struggle against infection and sanitation as much as against enemy steel. The battlefield was sometimes merely the loudest danger. You feel the body becoming fragile through repetition. One day of poor sleep can be endured. 2 days create irritation. A week carves hollows around the eyes. Marching in wet shoes opens blisters. Blisters become sores. Sores become infection. A man who cannot keep pace may lose protection, wages, food, or the sympathy of companions already carrying their own misery. Feet matter. They matter deeply. The road is filled with little acts of self-preservation. Men wrap feet in cloth. They dry socks near smoky fires. They grease leather. They trade for better shoes when fortune allows. They sleep with precious items close, because theft is not a theory in a crowded army. A missing cloak can mean a freezing night. A stolen knife can mean helplessness at dinner and danger in the dark. Foraging becomes both necessity and threat. Soldiers enter fields, barns, orchards, and villages looking for grain, livestock, firewood, and anything edible. Commanders may try to regulate this, especially when discipline matters, or friendly lands must not be ruined. Yet hunger is persuasive. It can make a saint examine another man's chicken with theological flexibility. A quirky tidbit lingers in medieval accounts of campaign life. Some soldiers carried small personal cooking pots, spoons, lucky charms, sewing kits, dice, or odd treasured scraps from home. A warrior might risk death for a dented spoon, not because the spoon was noble, but because eating without it was miserable. Human dignity sometimes has a handle. You see villagers watching from doorways as the armed column passes. Their faces hold caution rather than welcome. An army can buy, bargain, requisition, or steal, and the difference may depend on who has authority nearby. For civilians, soldiers are not always defenders. Their mouths, boots, hands, and threats moving through fields at harvest time. This is one of the unsettled questions in medieval studies. Historians from Princeton and the University of Chicago still debate how often armies maintained discipline compared with how often necessity dissolved restraint. Chronicles accuse soldiers of cruelty, while administrative records reveal attempts at order. Both can be true. Because paper commands do not always govern hungry men in muddy lanes. The soldier's own survival may damage someone else's life. That truth sits heavily if you let it. The loaf taken from a village oven feeds a marching man, but it may empty a child's supper. The sheep driven away strengthens an army, but it weakens a household. Medieval warfare spreads outward through ordinary hunger, touching people who never lift a weapon, in camp. Food becomes ritual. Grain is ground if mills can be reached. Bread is baked if ovens exist. Pottage bubbles in blackened pots, thick with peas, beans, herbs, oats, or whatever can be found without asking too many moral questions. Meat appears when animals are slaughtered, stolen, purchased, or scavenged. The smell of cooking can soften fear for a few minutes. Men gather near fires, bowls in hand, shoulders close. The talk becomes slower. Someone complains about the bread. Someone else says he has eaten worse, and everyone knows he wants respect for it. A veteran saves part of his ration because tomorrow may be lean. A younger man eats everything at once and learns, painfully, that appetite is not strategy. Salt matters. So does smoke. So does dryness. Preserving food is not quaint domestic knowledge. It is military infrastructure. Without preservation, meat rots. Without carts, grain stays behind. Without fodder, animals fail. Without roads, carts break. Without money, suppliers vanish. Behind every battlefield stands a chain of practical arrangements that can snap quietly. You hear carts groan under barrels and sacks. Wheels sink into mud. Oxen strain. Drivers curse softly, then loudly, then creatively. If the baggage train falls behind, the army's confidence thins. Soldiers may still have weapons, but weapons do not fill bowls. A hungry army becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability frightens commanders almost as much as enemy banners do. Disease thrives in the places where exhaustion gathers. Men share cups, blankets, insects, smoke, and breath. Lice travel happily through seams. Fleas make no distinction between noble blood and peasant blood, which is almost democratic of them. Fever can pass through tents and huts faster than rumour. The sick man is not merely suffering, he is also slowing everyone else. A soldier who wants to live learns to notice water sources, sleeping ground, latrine distance, spoiled meat, coughing companions, and the small signs of bodily collapse. He may not understand microbes, but he understands bad smells, foul wells, and the fact that men who drink from certain ditches regret it with great enthusiasm. Practical wisdom can exist without modern explanation. There is no clean separation between battle and the march. The march is part of the battle. It thins the weak, hardens the cautious, and punishes the careless. By the time soldiers reach an enemy field, some have already lost strength to hunger, sleeplessness, fever, and miles of stone beneath the feet, and so survival becomes less dramatic, but more real. It is not always a shield raised at the perfect instant. Sometimes it is a crust saved in a pouch, a dry place under a wagon, a drink taken upstream from the horses, a blister cut and cleaned before rot begins, a friend who shares onions when pride cannot be eaten. The army continues down the road, its banners lifting above dust and steam. Beneath them, every stomach counts time, every animal lowers its head toward grass, every cartwheel carries tomorrow's chance. Medieval soldiers stay alive not only by facing violence, but by enduring the long, grinding arithmetic of need. The sword may decide the day, the bread decides whether you reach it. The line begins as a decision made by many frightened people at once. You feel shoulders close beside you, shields shifting, spear points rising, boots pressing into soil already softened by morning damp. No one has enough room, and that is partly the point. A single soldier is breakable. A packed formation can become something harder, something that breathes with many lungs and survives by refusing to open. You're inside the shield wall now, or something close to it, depending on time place, and army. Medieval infantry formations vary across centuries, yet the principle remains beautifully severe. Men stand together so that each body protects another body. The shield at your side is not only yours, it belongs to the line. The spear in your hand reaches beyond your own courage. The smell changes here. Camp smoke gives way to crushed grass, churned mud, metal warmed by hands, and the sour panic of men trying not to show panic. Leather straps bite into wrists, shields knock together. Someone mutters a prayer through clenched teeth. Someone else whispers a joke too crude for a monastery, which, honestly, may be exactly why it helps. Mainstream historical records confirm that infantry discipline shaped many medieval battles, from Anglo-Saxon shield walls to Swiss pike formations and Flemish urban militias. Researchers at Oxford and Cambridge have emphasised that foot soldiers were never merely background figures behind noble cavalry. They could hold ground, break charges, protect archers, and turn terrain into a weapon. You sense the truth in your knees. To survive in a formation, you must resist the animal urge to step away. Distance feels safer to the frightened mind, yet distance can kill you. A gap invites a blade, a horse, a rush of enemy bodies. The line must remain tight enough to deny entry, but loose enough to breathe, turn, and absorb pressure without collapsing. This balance is delicate. Too tight, and men cannot move. Too loose, and the enemy finds seams. The soldier learns the width of survival by touch. A shield rim against his neighbour, a sleeve brush in his own, a spear shaft angled just past another man's ear. It is a crowded kind of intelligence, learned through bruises rather than books. The first impact is not always cinematic. Sometimes it's a shoving match with blades. Men push behind shields, stab over rims, hook at legs, and try to make the other side lose shape. You do not need to kill every enemy. You need to make the enemy line fail before yours does. In that failure, death enters quickly. The shield wall breathes because each man inhales fear and exhales obedience. Step, brace, lift, hold, thrust, recover. These movements sound simple until arms tremble and the mind begins making unhelpful suggestions. Run. It says duck. It says hide. It says, the formation answers with pressure from both sides. Stay. There is a strange mercy in being crowded. Alone. You might think too much. Packed among others. Your choice is narrow. You follow the movement of shoulders, the call of officers, the pull of training, and the rough command of necessity. Survival becomes less philosophical. Keep your feet, keep your weapon, keep the line. A short space opens ahead. Then it closes. You notice how vision shrinks. The battlefield is vast in chronicles, but tiny inside a formation. You may see only a shield face, a spear point, a patch of beard, a flash of teeth, a helmet rim. Commanders may speak of wings, reserves, and flanks. You speak with your body to the man beside you, saying without words that you have not yet broken. A quirky tidbit appears in the practical language of formations. Medieval soldiers sometimes carried distinctive badges, colours, or cloth signs not only for pride, but to avoid killing the wrong exhausted stranger in a dust cloud. It is a very human solution. When everyone is armoured, dirty, shouting, and terrified, fashion becomes battlefield administration. The shield itself takes punishment like a loyal servant with no retirement plan. Arrows lodge in it, blades bite, axe heads tear through boards. The grip strains the forearm until fingers numb. A soldier may shift weight, rotate the shield, or rest its lower edge briefly when pressure allows. Tiny movements preserve strength. Waste nothing. Even courage must be rationed. Spears are democratic weapons, almost offensively practical. They are cheaper than swords, easier to teach, and cruelly effective in groups. A spear allows a soldier to threaten from beyond arm's length, which is a polite way of saying he would prefer not to be hugged by an axe. In formation, many spear points together create a thorn hedge of intent, yet spears break, shafts splinter, points lodge in shields or bodies. A man may drop to a sidearm, draw a knife, seize a fallen weapon, or simply shove with whatever remains. Medieval survival often depends on improvisation when the neat plan has been trampled into mud. The soldier who lives is not always the strongest. He may be the one who adapts fastest while still staying close. The open scholarly debate here concerns training and cohesion among different kinds of medieval infantry. Historians at universities such as Princeton, Yale, and Glasgow continue to discuss how much time various levies, militias, and retinues spent drilling together. Some forces were experienced and organised, others were assembled under pressure. The difference could decide whether a line bent, held, or dissolved. You feel how leadership travels through sound and sight. A banner rises above the press, bright enough to matter. A captain's voice cuts through the din when he still has breath. Drums, horns, or shouted commands keep bodies moving together. If the banner falls or the officer vanishes, confusion spreads with terrible speed. Men need something visible to believe the army still exists. The rear ranks have their own torment. They may not see the danger clearly, but they feel its pressure. They push forward, replace the fallen, pass weapons, and keep the front from recoiling. Sometimes they give courage to the men ahead. Sometimes they crush them by accident. Crowds not gentle just because they are friendly. Terrain becomes another member of the formation. A ditch protects one side. A hedge disrupts a charge. A slope tires attackers. Mud slows horses and feet alike. Commanders who understand ground offer their soldiers an invisible layer of armour. Commanders who ignore it invite the earth to choose winners with quiet indifference. You stand with one foot sliding slightly. That tiny slip matters. Balance is life in the crush. A fallen soldier becomes an obstacle, a cry, a warning, and sometimes a step beneath another man's boot. The line cannot always stop for him. This is one of the most brutal truths of group survival. The formation saves many because it cannot save everyone. Still, men do help when they can. A hand catches a sleeve, a shield shifts to cover a neighbour, a spear blocks a thrust meant for someone else. Medieval battle was savage, but it was not only selfish. Survival in formation depends on mutual obligation, so immediate it has no time to become noble. Help him, because his gap is your death. The noise gathers until it becomes almost weather. Wood cracking, metal striking metal, men grunting from effort rather than drama, horses screaming somewhere beyond sight, orders half heard, prayers swallowed. The battlefield does not sound like music, it sounds like heavy labour performed at the edge of terror. You begin to understand why discipline mattered more than individual fury. A wild fighter may be dangerous for a moment. A disciplined group is dangerous for longer. The soldier who lunges too far exposes himself. The man who chases a retreating enemy may tear open the line. Restraint is not cowardice. It is architecture. So the formation teaches humility. You're not the story by yourself. You're one plank in a wall, one thorn in a hedge, one breath inside a larger chest. Your life depends on men whose names you may barely know. Their lives depend on you resisting the private command of fear. At times, the pressure loosens. No one trusts it. Men gulp air, adjust shields, wipe sweat from eyes, and listen for the next movement. The pause may last seconds or minutes, but it feels strangely endless. In that narrow stillness, every bruise announces itself. Every muscle asks why it was invited. Then the bodies surge again, and thought folds back into action. Brace, lift, hold, thrust, recover. The line breathes because it must. It survives by becoming less like a crowd and more like a single stubborn creature standing in the mud. This is how soldiers stay alive when the world narrows to shields and spear points. They give up the illusion of solitary heroism. They become disciplined, useful, and very difficult to move. They trust wood, iron, training, ground, and the trembling man beside them. And somewhere within that crowded terror, survival takes its shape, not bright, not graceful, but firm enough for one more breath to hold. The first arrows are heard before they are understood. A faint hiss crosses the morning air, thin and almost delicate, like reeds bending under wind. Then the sound thickens. It becomes a dry whisper above helmets, shields, and upturned faces. Men look skyward because the body cannot help itself, although looking rarely makes danger kinder. You feel the line tighten beneath that falling sound. Shields rise, shoulders hunch, men crouch behind wood, leather, wicker, steel, or whatever fortune has provided. The world above you darkens in fragments, not like night, not truly, but like a sky suddenly filled with decisions made by strangers. Arrows do not hate you. That is the unnerving part. They are impersonal, light, swift, and beautifully made for something terrible. They come from men you may barely see, across ground you have not crossed, launched by hands that do not know your name. Medieval missile fire turns distance into fear, and fear into discipline. If discipline can hold, the soldiers who survive do not simply endure arrows. They learn how to behave beneath them. Stay covered, keep formation, do not waste movement. Do not lift your face for curiosity. Curiosity is charming at a market stall. Under arrows, it becomes a foolish little invitation to mortality. A mainstream historical fact is clear from many battles, including Crécy, Poitiers, and Agincourt. English longbowmen and other missile troops could shape the outcome before close combat fully began. Historians connected with Oxford, Cambridge, and American military studies programs have emphasized that archery was not decorative support. It disrupted formations, wounded horses, broke confidence, and forced enemies to move under pressure. You hear arrows strike shields with a flat, hard knock, some bounce, some bite deeply into wood, some slip past edges and vanish into cloth, skin, or the narrow gaps that armor cannot perfectly close. A man beside you grunts once, surprised more than dramatic, and drops to one knee. His neighbour leans over him, but only for a heartbeat. The sky's still working. Crossbow bolts carry a different terror. They arrive lower, harder, and often with grim precision. A crossbowman may shoot from behind pavises, walls, carts, or prepared positions. The weapon's power makes armour owners uneasy, which is always a useful measure of effectiveness. When nobles complain about a weapon, it often means ordinary men have found something persuasive. Stones arrive with less elegance but no less consequence. Sling stones, thrown rocks, and later gunpowder projectiles all belong to the same family of rude surprises. A stone does not need to pierce armour to break bone, stun the mind, or knock a man into the path of worse things. Medieval battle is generous with ways to fall down. The shield becomes a roof now. You angle it above your head, feeling the strain climb from wrist to shoulder. The weight grows quickly, then cruelly. Your arm begins bargaining with your fear. Lower me, it says. Only for a moment. The rest of the body refuses, because the rest of the body has heard what happens when men lower shields too soon. There is a strange closeness beneath raised shields. Breath warms the inner surface. Sweat runs down your cheek. Dust gathers in your mouth. You see only boots, hems, shield rims, and strips of ground. The battlefield shrinks into a wooden cave carried on your arm. It is cramped, hot, and deeply preferable to being uncovered. Some armies use large shields or pavises to protect archers and crossbowmen while they reload. These tall protective boards turn open ground into temporary walls. Behind them, men wind mechanisms, set bolts, draw strings, and wait for orders. It is not glamorous. It is practical. Medieval survival often looks like hiding properly while doing something dangerous. A quirky tidbit belongs among the fletching and bowstrings. Medieval archers sometimes carried spare strings tucked beneath hats, inside clothing, or in dry containers, guarding them from rain like little treasures. A fine bow with a ruined string is merely a dramatic stick. The humble spare cord, naturally, never gets the heroic poem it deserves. Weather medals with missile fire like an uninvited commander. Rain slackens strings. Wind alters flight. Mud affects positioning. Sun glare can blind men looking upward. A damp bough may lose power, while a wet field may slow anyone trying to close the distance. Soldiers watch clouds with the seriousness of prophets, because the sky itself can join a side. The scholarly debate here remains lively among historians from institutions such as Princeton, Leeds, and the University of Chicago. They continue to assess exactly how lethal longbow fire was against different armour at different ranges. Experiments reveal force and penetration, yet battle adds movement, angles, panic, bad footing, and the unpleasant habit of horses refusing theory. That debate matters because arrows do more than kill. They frighten, delay, wound, distract, and disorder. A man struck in the arm may survive, but his shield drops. A horse wounded in the chest may rear, bolt, or crash into friendly ranks. A commander who hoped for a clean advance may instead receive a ragged crowd arriving tired, angry, and full of holes. You feel the temptation to run forward just to escape the waiting. Missile fire makes patience painful. Standing beneath it feels unnatural, almost insulting. The enemy is hurting you from a distance, and your hands can do very little about it. So discipline asks the impossible. Do not chase too early. Do not scatter. Do not turn your back. Let terror pass through formation without breaking it. The men who fire also fight their own battle. Drawing a heavy bow again and again demands strength built through years, not enthusiasm acquired at breakfast. Fingers blister, shoulders burn. The rhythm must hold. Knock, draw, aim, loose, reach, repeat. A skilled archer is not a picturesque woodsman wandering through legend. He is a labourer of violence trained by repetition until the body becomes machinery with a pulse. Crossbowmen face another kind of pressure. Reloading can be slow depending on the weapon, and slowness invites danger. They must trust shields, walls, assistance, or timing. They must shoot, disappear behind cover, and prepare again while the enemy considers closing the distance. The crossbow's power is bought with patience, and patience is expensive in battle. You notice these notional rhythm of volleys. Before impact, dread rises. During impact, the body contracts. After impact, relief flashes for those not hit, followed immediately by shame, because others were not spared. Then the sound begins again. Fear becomes circular, and soldiers must live inside the circle without letting it spin them apart. Some men count volleys, some pray, some curse the archers with impressive creativity, some stare fixedly at the ground, as if mud contains wisdom. A veteran tells a younger soldier to keep his mouth closed when looking up, because an arrow through the face is a poor way to learn humility. The advice is terrible, useful, and almost tender. Armour changes the experience, but not the fear. A well-armoured man may hear arrows glance away with metallic snaps. That sound can be reassuring until one finds a gap. A poorly protected man hears each strike as a personal accusation from physics. Still, even simple protection helps. A shield, a helmet, quilted cloth, and good positioning can turn disaster into survivable misery. Commanders use missile fire to prepare the mind as much as the field. A shaken force advances badly. Men crowd together, hesitate, or rush. Horses sense distress. Officers shout more. Banners waver. An army under arrows may still be intact on parchment, but its inner confidence can be quietly punctured. Yet missile troops are vulnerable too. If cavalry or infantry reaches them in disorder, the hunters may become prey. Archers often depend on stakes, ditches, sidearms, terrain, and supporting troops. The longbowman who has spent the morning sending death at a distance may suddenly need a mallet, sword, knife, or raw speed. War has a rude sense of balance. You breathe beneath the shield and wait for the sound to thin. At last, the hiss becomes scattered. A few arrows strike late, lonely, and somehow more frightening. Men lift their faces carefully. They look around with quick, guilty relief. Some shields bristle like hedgehogs. Some bodies do not rise. The ground is stitched with shafts, each one marking a place where chance made a decision. This is how soldiers survive the darkened morning. They respect distance. They protect the head and throat. They use shields as roofs, pavises as walls, terrain as shelter, patience as armour. They understand that bravery under missile fire is often the discipline to remain small, covered, and still. No song lingers there for long, only the soft creak of bent wood, the tremble of tired arms, and the knowledge that the sky has teeth. The horses announce themselves through the ground. Before you clearly see them, you feel a tremor underfoot, a dull rolling pressure passing through mud, grass, and bone. Men lift their spears without being told. Shields rise again, not toward the sky this time, but toward a moving wall of muscle, iron, leather, and breath. Cavalry looks different when it comes toward you. From a hillside, it may seem graceful, almost ceremonial, with lances angled and banners snapping above polished helmets. From the place where the hooves are heading, it feels less like ceremony and more like weather-given teeth. The horse is not a decoration beneath the night. It is mass, speed, fear, and training arranged into one charging body. You smell them as the distance closes. Hot animal sweat, torn turf, leather harness, the sharp scent of churned earth. There is also a sound beneath the hoofbeats, a rhythm of metal fittings, creaking saddles, shouted orders, and horses breathing hard through flared nostrils. The air itself seems to tighten. A mainstream historical fact stands plainly here. Medieval cavalry, especially heavily armed mounted elites, could dominate open ground when supported properly and used at the right moment. Scholars at Yale, Oxford, and other major universities have shown that the knightly charge was not simply a romantic image. It was a tactical tool built on wealth, breeding, equipment, training, and social power. But survival begins with noticing the condition hidden inside that sentence. Open ground matters, timing matters, support matters. A horseman is powerful, but not universal. Mud weakens speed. Stakes disrupt confidence. Ditches break formation. Dense spear points invite disaster. A frightened horse may refuse what a brave rider demands, which is terribly inconvenient for heroic poetry. You see the riders more clearly now. Some carry lances, some hold swords, maces, axes, or war hammers ready for the moment after impact. Their armour may shine, or it may be dull with use, rain, and road filth. Horses wear protection too, when owners can afford it, though many remain exposed in ways that infantry quietly appreciate. The war horse is trained for noise and pressure, yet it is still alive. It has nerves, eyes, lungs, and opinions. It can be wounded, startled, exhausted, or trapped. A mounted knight depends on an animal that cannot be reasoned with in Latin, no matter how impressive the rider's family tree may be. There is gentle sarcasm there, and also danger. Infantry survival against cavalry begins with refusing to behave like prey. Running invites pursuit. Scattering opens the ground. Turning away exposes backs and necks. The men who live brace together, lower spear points, hold shields close, and trust that the animal ahead prefers not to impale itself. That trust is not comfortable. It is practical, trembling, and very old. The spear butt digs into the soil, hands tighten along the shaft, your front foot presses forward, your rear foot seeks purchase, and your body becomes part of a hedge. Men beside you breathe sharply. too sharply, then force themselves steady. The line must appear more solid than fear actually feels. A quirky tidbit settles among the spear points. Some medieval horses had names recorded with surprising affection, while others were valued in documents with the seriousness of estates, armour, or ships. A good warhorse could cost more than an ordinary household might imagine. So yes, the knight may be noble, but the horse is also an expensive colleague with hooves. The first clash may not be a clean collision. Often cavalry probes, wheels, threatens, withdraws, and searches for weakness. A charge is not always one glorious straight line. Riders may try to frighten infantry into opening, strike exposed edges, pursue broken men, or exploit disorder created by arrows and fatigue. Cavalry is most lethal when someone else has already damaged your courage. You learn to fear the flanks. A wall of spears facing forward can feel strong until horsemen curve around toward the side. The side is where order thins. Shields angle badly. Men turn their heads. Commands become confused. A formation surviving cavalry must protect its edges, because the edge is where the body of the army begins to unravel. The scholarly debate here concerns how often cavalry charges truly shattered disciplined infantry. Historians at Cambridge's Princeton and Leeds continue to examine chronicles, terrain, weapon tests, and casualty patterns. Some accounts praise mounted shock as decisive. Others reveal infantry holding firm against elite riders. The truth changes with training, ground, morale, and whether anyone remembered the stakes. Stakes are wonderfully unromantic. They are sharpened wood, driven into the earth at angles that persuade horses to reconsider. Archers use them famously in some battles, but the broader principle is simple. Place something ugly between soft animal flesh and your own softer human flesh. Civilization is sometimes just a row of pointed sticks with planning permission. Mud can be even less poetic. Heavy cavalry needs momentum, and mud steals momentum with quiet delight. Hooves sink, lines bunch, horses tire, riders lose spacing. A charge that should crash like thunder may arrive as a strained, slipping confusion of expensive men discovering geology. The earth does not care about noble titles. It has its own policy. You imagine the rider's danger too, because survival belongs to both sides. A knight who falls from horseback becomes suddenly smaller in the world. Armour protects him, but the ground is crowded and unfriendly. He may be pinned, stunned, trapped beneath the horse, or surrounded by men with knives and very practical grievances. Height is power until it disappears. Mounted soldiers stay alive through skill learned over years. They control reins with subtle pressure, guide with knees, balance through turns, and strike while moving. They must judge distance, speed, and the behaviour of terrified crowds. They must also trust companions, because a lone rider deep among infantry becomes a donation to local enthusiasm. The lance is a weapon of timing. Too early, and it wavers uselessly. Too late, and the moment vanishes. The rider must align horse, arm, body, point, and target while the world races forward. The impact can break wood, armour, bone, and confidence. It can also misglance, or bury the weapon where recovering it becomes impossible. Once the lance is gone, close-mounted fighting becomes messy. Swords cut downward, maces crush, axes hook and split. Warhammers focus force into small, unpleasant places. The infantryman tries to drag, stab, dodge, and survive under a moving height disadvantage. The horse's shoulder can knock him aside before any weapon arrives. Hooves complete arguments nobody wanted. Still, cavalry hates disorder in its own ranks. Horses colliding with horses create chaos. Riders compressed too tightly cannot maneuver. A fallen animal can obstruct those behind. A charge depends on rhythm, and a disrupted rhythm becomes vulnerability. Infantry who endure the first pressure may find the proud wave breaking into separate men. You hear commanders shouting to hold. Their voices strain because the body wants to disobey. Every instinct says move away from the enormous animal coming forward. The soldier must become more stubborn than his instincts. He must trust wood, neighbour, and ground. He must let the charge meet a line rather than a crowd of backs. For a moment, everything is close. A horse's eye rolls white. A rider's boot flashes past. A lance splinters. Someone falls with a sound like a dropped sack of grain, which feels indecently ordinary. The line bends, shudders, then either opens or holds. There is no legend in that second, only pressure. If the formation holds, men discover courage only after needing it. They shout then, partly in triumph, partly in astonishment. Spears thrust upward, hands grab reins. A rider is pulled sideways, another wheels away. Horses avoid the densest points when they can. The terrible wall of cavalry becomes scattered force, still dangerous, but no longer inevitable. Mounted soldiers survive by choosing ground, keeping formation, striking weak places, and withdrawing before pride traps them. Foot soldiers survive by denying open space, guarding flanks, and turning fear into a bristling surface. Both sides understand that horses multiply power but also multiply dependence. A horse must be fed, trained, protected, guided, and believed by the man who sits above it. The brutal truth is not that cavalry always wins, nor is it that infantry always stops it. The truth is colder and more conditional. Horses magnify advantage. Bad ground magnifies mistakes. Discipline turns ordinary men into obstacles. Panic turns them into roads. The hoofbeats fade for a moment, replaced by harsh breathing and the groan of wounded animals. You stand among bent spear shafts, churned mud, and men staring at one another as if surprised to still be human. Somewhere nearby, a rider curses from the ground. Somewhere else, a horse limps in circles, confused by pain. The field has changed. The charge has passed, but the body remembers it. Your knees still tremble. Your hands still grip the spear too tightly. Survival has become the act of remaining useful while fear drains slowly from the bones. And across the broken ground, beyond the mud and pointed stakes, mounted men gather again beneath their banners. Not invincible, not foolish, still dangerous. The earth waits under them all. The siege begins with a strange quiet, not with a single heroic clash. You stand before walls that do not move, beneath towers that watch without blinking, while an army settles around them like a slow illness. The town or castle ahead is not merely an obstacle. It is a sealed world of stone, timber, wells, grain stores, animals, children, soldiers, fear, and stubborn hope. A battle may end in hours. A siege teaches time to crawl. The attackers build their own rough settlement outside the walls. Tents rise, fires smoke, ditches are cut, carts are arranged, guards mark the roads, smiths repair tools and weapons. Carpenters begin measuring wood with the calm expressions of men planning something unpleasant. The besieging army must survive almost as carefully as the people trapped within. You smell damp earth first, freshly dug soil, old straw, smoke, sweat, latrines, and the sour scent of too many bodies lingering in one place. A siege camp can become a town made of discomfort. It has markets, quarrels, meals, repairs, sickness, gambling, prayer, and boredom. War here is not always thunder. Sometimes it is waiting until hunger becomes a weapon. Mainstream records from medieval chronicles and administrative accounts confirm that sieges were among the most common forms of warfare. Scholars at Oxford, Yale, and American military history programs have emphasized that castles and fortified towns shaped strategy across medieval Europe and beyond. Armies often preferred taking strongholds to risking open battle, because walls controlled roads, rivers, stores, and authority. The soldier outside the wall faces a problem that does not charge him, it simply refuses him. Stone absorbs anger. Gates remain shut. Defenders look down from battlements, irritatingly alive. The attacker must find a way through, over, under, around, or past the defences. Each option is slow, dangerous, expensive, and deeply inconvenient. Ladders are the simplest answer, which does not make them comforting. A ladder placed against a wall turns men into a queue for violence. One climbs upward beneath stones, arrows, bolts, boiling water, sand, hooks, spears, and whatever else defenders can throw with enthusiasm. The climber cannot easily shield himself. His hands are busy arguing with gravity. Siege towers offer more grandeur, but grandeur needs wheels, carpenters, hides, wet coverings, labour, level ground, and luck. A tower must approach the wall while defenders try to burn it, break it, or stop it in mud. It is a moving promise made of timber, and timber has a famously emotional relationship with fire. Then come the engines. Trebuchets, mangonels, and other machines throw stones, fire, dead animals, or messages of discouragement over walls. Their work is not always quick. Stone walls can be battered for days or weeks. Accuracy varies. Wood cracks. Ropes strain. Crews sweat. A siege engine is less a single weapon than a community project with a terrible social purpose. A quirky tidbit belongs among these machines. Some besieging armies hurled diseased animal carcasses or filth into towns, hoping to spread panic and sickness. It was grim, crude, and medically confused in places, but not entirely foolish. Medieval people may not have understood germs in the modern sense, yet they understood that rotting matter near people was bad news. Truly, an insight for the ages. Inside the walls, survival becomes a different calculation. Defenders count grain, salt, arrows, bolts, firewood, water, animals, and patience. Civilians share space with soldiers, cellars become shelters, churches become gathering places, wells become treasures. Every loaf is measured against an unknown future. Hunger turns from discomfort into policy. The town hears the attackers at night, picks in earth, axes on timber, wheels creaking, men coughing beyond the ditch. Sometimes the defenders hear singing, which may be worse than shouting. It means the enemy is settled in. It means the waiting will continue. It means the world outside has not forgotten them. Unfortunately, mining is one of the most unsettling arts of siege warfare. Men dig tunnels toward the foundations, working in darkness with poor air, cramped backs, and the constant fear of collapse. If they reach the wall, they may support the tunnel with timber, then burn the supports, causing a section to fall. It is patient destruction beneath the feet. Defenders listen for miners. They place bowls of water near walls, watching for ripples. They press ears to ground. They dig countermines to meet the attackers below. Imagine that for a moment. You are underground, in darkness, crawling toward men who are crawling toward you, each side carrying tools, blades, and fear. It is warfare reduced to breathing in the earth. The scholarly debate here concerns how often siege accounts exaggerate horror for moral, political, or literary reasons. Historians from Cambridge, Princeton, and the University of Chicago continue to weigh chronicles against archaeology, finance records, and surviving fortifications. Some descriptions may be shaped by propaganda, yet the physical evidence of burned gates, undermined walls, and starvation remains difficult to dismiss. For the ordinary soldier outside, the greatest danger may be boredom sharpened by disease. Long encampments breed sickness, food spoils, waterfowls, waste gathers, men fight over supplies, discipline frays. An attacker can die without ever touching the wall, taken by fever, bad meat, infection, or a knife in a night quarrel over dice. That is the unpleasant joke of siege warfare. The wall kills by making everyone stay. Commanders must keep morale alive. They promise pay, plunder, honour, mercy, or divine approval. They rotate watches, organise assaults, punish theft, and negotiate when strength becomes arithmetic. They may offer terms to the defenders: surrender now and live, resist too long, and mercy may become harder to locate. Medieval diplomacy often arrives wearing armour. For defenders, negotiation can be survival. A garrison might surrender after a set period if relief does not arrive. A noble commander may bargain for safe conduct. Townspeople may beg for terms before famine destroys them. Yet surrender is dangerous. Promises can be broken. Anger can flood through a breach gate faster than law. The breach is the nightmare both sides imagine. A section of wall collapses, and suddenly stone becomes slope, dust, and opportunity. Attackers rush forward carrying shields, ladders, hooks, axes, and the desperate knowledge that hesitation wastes the opening. Defenders crowd the gap, throwing beams, stones, fire, and bodies into the wound in their own wall. You feel the terror of that narrow place. The breach focuses violence like a funnel. Men cannot spread out. They climb over rubble, slip on broken stone, and strike at shapes through dust. The defender has height and desperation. The attacker has momentum and numbers. Survival depends on footing, timing, and the man behind you not shoving too soon. Inside, civilians listen to the breach like a door opening onto another world. Some hide valuables, some pray, some carry water, some prepare to flee through back passages if such mercy exists. Children are hushed, though no one is fooled by silence. The walls that made life feel solid now tremble with decisions made outside human kindness. Fire changes everything. A burning gate lights the faces of men who have not slept properly in days. Smoke crawls along walls and through streets. Wet hides are thrown over engines. Buckets pass hand to hand. Sparks leap into thatch. Fire is useful until it becomes independent, which it usually does with confidence. Soldiers stay alive in sieges by learning patience as a weapon and suspicion as a habit. They keep helmets near, even during meals. They sleep lightly. They avoid standing where stones tend to land. They do not trust quiet near a wall. They watch wells, gates, latrines, and food stores. They know that a siege is a world made of small failures waiting to become catastrophe. Yet there is endurance here too. Defenders repair walls at night, lifting stones in darkness while arrows search for them. Attackers fill ditches under fire, carrying bundles of brushwood toward places no sensible person would approach. Cooks stir pots. Priests bless frightened crowds. Children learn which streets are safest. Life continues under pressure, stubborn and strange. A siege reveals medieval warfare at its most patient and most cruel. It is not only men striking men. It is hunger pressed against stone. It is sickness living in puddles. It is engineering guided by fear. It is courage measured not in a charge, but in another day endured while the walls hold or fail. The torches burn low across the camp. On the battlements, smaller lights answer them. Two worlds stare at one another through darkness, each hoping the other weakens first. No one truly sleeps. The wall remains black against the stars, heavy with silence, full of breathing lives. And beneath that silence, someone is digging. The trumpets fade, and the wounded become louder. Battle noise does not truly end at once. It breaks apart into smaller sounds, each one more human than the clash that came before. Men call names, horses cry out, armour scrapes against stones. Someone laughs in shock, then begins to sob. Someone asks for water with the politeness of a guest at table, which makes the request more terrible. You walk through a field that no longer feels like a field. It has become a scattered place of shields, broken shafts, torn cloth, dropped knives, spilled arrows, and bodies trying to remain bodies. Dust hangs low where feet once churned it. The air smells of iron, sweat, earth, dung, smoke, and the sour warmth of opened flesh. The scent is difficult to forget. Medieval soldiers rarely did. Survival now depends on being found, recognised, lifted, carried, and treated before shock, bleeding, cold, or infection claim what weapons began. The heroic moment has passed, the practical hour arrives, and the practical hour is busy, frightened, and underqualified. A man with a wounded thigh may live if bleeding slows. A man with a cracked skull may speak clearly for a while, then vanish behind his own eyes. A cut hand may end a soldier's trade, even if it spares his life. A wound that seems small may become fatal later, because medieval battle does not finish its work politely. Medical historians at universities such as Oxford, Yale, and Cambridge have shown that medieval care was more complex than the old joke suggests. Surgeons set bones, stitched wounds, removed arrows, cauterized bleeding, drained abscesses, and used herbal preparations with varying success. They were not modern doctors. Of course, they were not magicians either. They worked with the tools and theories their world allowed. You see those tools laid on cloth near a wagon. Knives, needles, hooks, probes, saws, bandages, cups, cords, ointments, and bowls of water that everyone hopes are cleaner than they probably are. The surgeon's hands move quickly, not always gently. Gentleness is desirable. Speed may be necessary. A screaming man can bleed while everyone discusses bedside manners. The first problem is bleeding, pressure, bandaging, binding, packing, and cautery may be used to stop it. Cautery is exactly as comforting as it sounds, which is to say, not at all. Heated metal can seal vessels and tissue, but it brings agony, smoke, and a smell that makes even experienced men go quiet. Survival sometimes arrives with a hiss. Then comes extraction. Arrowheads are not always easy to remove. Some are barbed, some break. Some carry dirt, cloth, and splinters deep into tissue. A surgeon may push an arrow through rather than pull it back, if that seems less destructive. This is the kind of decision that makes modern comfort feel very far away. A quirky tidbit sits uneasily among the bandages. Some medieval remedies involved wine, honey, vinegar, egg white, herbs, or animal fats, and a few are more sensible than they sound. Honey can discourage infection, wine can cleanse to a degree, and clean linen is better than filthy cloth. Medieval medicine was a crowded shelf, where practical observation stood beside astrology, prayer, and ingredients that should have remained in the kitchen. You notice the wounded sorting themselves into categories no one says aloud. Those who can walk may be told to walk. Those who can crawl may crawl. Those who cannot move must wait for help. Rank matters here, as it has mattered everywhere. A nobleman is more likely to be protected, carried, ransomed, and treated quickly. A poor foot soldier may need luck, friends, or a very loud voice. The open scholarly debate concerns how effective medieval battlefield surgery could be under campaign conditions. Researchers at Stanford, Princeton, and specialist medical history centres continue to compare written surgical manuals, skeletal evidence, and accounts of care. Some wounds show signs of healing after serious trauma. Others reveal the limits imposed by infection, shock, and the absence of modern antisepsis. You kneel near a man whose helmet has been removed. His hair is clotted. His eyes follow movement without understanding. A priest bends near him and speaks softly. The words may bring comfort, or they may simply give shape to the silence. Around them, others work with cloth and water, pulling men from heaps of discarded gear. Pain changes the hierarchy of the field. The boastful become quiet. The quiet begins speaking to mothers long dead. A veteran curses with impressive discipline while a splinter is drawn from his arm. Another man insists he is fine, then falls sideways into the mud. The body does not always consult pride before collapsing. There are stretchers, doors, cloaks, shields, carts, and hands beneath shoulders. Anything flat can become a litter. Anything strong can become a support. Men carry comrades away from places where hooves, looters, or frightened horses may do more damage. Movement itself can harm the wounded, but leaving them where they lie may be worse. Medieval survival is full of miserable comparisons. Water is precious, and not only for drinking. Wounds need washing, faces need cleaning for identification, dry mouths need relief, yet water can also carry sickness, especially from muddy ditches and fouled streams. A cup offered to one man may pass to another, and carry invisible dangers along with mercy. No one sees the invisible dangers. They see thirst. Infection waits like a second enemy. Dirt, cloth fibres, bone fragments, rust, and human handling can turn a survivable wound into fever. The swelling may come later, the heat around a cut, the pus, the trembling, the red line creeping along skin. Medieval people recognise corruption and putrefaction, though they explained them through the knowledge available. They feared bad air, imbalance, rot, and divine judgment. They were not wrong to fear. Some treatments help. Cleaning, draining, bandaging, immobilizing, and rest can give the body a chance. Some treatments harm. Excess bleeding, filthy instruments, misguided mixtures, and rough handling can push a man closer to death. The surgeon's reputation matters, but so does the condition of the camp, the weather, the patient's strength, and the small invisible luck inside the wound. Bone injuries are especially cruel. A clean fracture might be set with splints and time. A shattered limb, pierced by weapon or crushed by horse, presents harder choices. Amputation is possible, brutal, and dangerous. It may save a life from spreading infection, or end a life through shock and blood loss. The decision belongs to a world where every option has teeth. You hear flies already gathering. That sound is small, almost delicate. It is also merciless. The battlefield after violence attracts more than healers. Looters move among the fallen, searching belts, purses, weapons, buckles, shoes, and rings. Some are soldiers, some are camp followers, some are desperate people from nearby places. The wounded must be protected from enemies, thieves, and even friends who decide that a good helmet should not be wasted. Survival can depend on being guarded until the field is safe. Yet mercy exists, though never evenly. Comrade gives water, a monk binds a wound. A woman from the baggage train brings linen. A surgeon stays awake through the night, hands dark with other people's chances. Medieval care was not gentle by modern standards, but it could be deeply human. The effort to save life has always lived beside the ability to destroy it. You begin to understand that staying alive after combat may be harder than living through the first blow. The soldier must survive blood loss, shock, exposure, infection, thirst, neglect, and the long transport over roads that punish every wound. Victory does not close the wound. Defeat does not always end the body. The injured live in a suspended place between battle and memory. As evening lowers across the field, fires are lit near wagons and makeshift shelters. Groans soften, not because pain has left, but because exhaustion has wrapped itself around every voice. Bandaged men lie beneath cloaks. Some sleep, some stare, some whisper bargains to saints, surgeons, or anyone still listening. The brutal truth is quiet now. A soldier stays alive not only by avoiding the weapon, but by surviving what the weapon leaves behind. He needs hands, cloth, skill, water, shelter, status, luck, and time. Especially time. The night smells of smoke and vinegar. Somewhere, a needle passes through skin. Somewhere else. A man asks whether he'll keep his arm, and no one answers too quickly. The hand that seizes your collar may be trying to kill you, or it may be trying to make money. In medieval warfare, that difference can decide whether a soldier breathes through the evening. The battlefield is not only a place of rage and steel, It is also a marketplace with mud underfoot, where a living captive may be worth more than a dead enemy. You feel the confusion of surrender in the crush of bodies. A weapon drops. A voice cries for mercy. A hand lifts in desperation, or in calculation. The moment is brief and dangerous, because mercy must be understood quickly by men whose ears are full of shouting. A soldier who hesitates may die. A soldier who strikes too eagerly may destroy a prophet. War makes even compassion suspiciously financial. For nobles and wealthy fighters, capture can be a strange form of survival. Their names, families, lands, horses, armour, and political value turn them into living treasure. A night taken prisoner might be held, guarded, exchanged, or ransomed for a sum that could change another man's fortune. In that sense, rank becomes armour of another kind, softer than steel, but often more effective after defeat. Records from medieval ransom agreements, household accounts, and legal documents confirm that captivity was deeply woven into aristocratic warfare. Historians at Oxford, Cambridge, and Yale have shown that ransom could shape battlefield behaviour, campaign finance, and noble relationships. A captured lord was not merely an enemy removed from the field. He was a negotiable asset with a heartbeat. The poor soldier lives under a harsher law. He may have no famous name, no estate, no relatives able to gather silver, and no political weight worth preserving. If captured, he might be spared for labour, exchange, recruitment, or simple mercy. He might also be killed because guarding him cost food and attention. Poverty narrows the road away from death. You stand near a ditch where men are being searched. Belts come off, pouches vanish, rings are tugged from fingers, a helmet is lifted away, and with it goes both protection and identity. Prisoners are examined like goods, which is exactly what some of them have become. Their wounds matter only if those wounds reduce their value too quickly. This is where survival becomes performance. A captured man must appear worth keeping, but not dangerous. He must speak clearly if he has status. He must name a lord, a household, a banner, a witness. He must not reach for a hidden knife unless he's very committed to becoming a memory. He must convince exhausted enemies that restraint is useful. The quirky tidbit in this grim economy is that captors sometimes argued among themselves over who had taken an important prisoner first. A hand on a bridle, a shouted claim, a torn badge, or a witness could matter. Imagine surviving a charge only to become the subject of a property dispute. Medieval paperwork always finds a way into the mud. Ransom could be formal, almost polite. Once the terrifying first moments passed, a noble captive might be treated with guarded courtesy, invited to eat with his captor, or allowed to send letters arranging payment. He could give parole, promising not to escape or fight again until terms were settled. Honour and profit shook hands, while less fortunate men watched from colder corners. Yet this courtesy should not be mistaken for kindness. Captivity remained captivity. A prisoner could be confined in a castle chamber, a townhouse, a camp enclosure, or a rough guarded space near baggage carts. He might be moved across bad roads, threatened, underfed, or pressured by uncertainty. A noble's value protected him, but it also trapped him. Gold makes a man visible. The open scholarly debate concerns how consistently the customs of ransom were observed across regions, classes, and moments of crisis. Researchers at Princeton, Stanford, and the University of Chicago have compared chronicles, court records, and letters showing both restraint and massacre. Rules existed, but rules become fragile when hunger, revenge, fear, or command failure enters the field. One man's surrender may be honoured, another's may not. You notice how timing alters mercy. Early in battle, captives can be guarded and counted. During pursuit, men are more likely to be cut down because speed matters. During a rout, fear and anger flood everything. After a hard fight, victors may be too exhausted to manage prisoners gently. The same army can show restraint at noon and savagery by dusk. Capturing someone safely requires control. The captor must disarm the prisoner, remove immediate threats, perhaps bind wrists, perhaps assign guards. If the captive is important, the captor must protect him from other soldiers who see armour, horse, and jewellery waiting to be taken. Keeping a prisoner alive can become dangerous work, especially when everyone nearby has opinions about spoils. A prisoner learns to read faces. Is this man disciplined? Is he drunk? Is he wounded? Does he understand my language? Does he want ransom, revenge, or boots? These questions arrive faster than prayers. Survival may depend on guessing which voice nearby holds authority. A shouted name can save time. A recognizable badge can become a small flag of life. Language itself can decide breath. Armies often contain men from different regions, dialects, and social worlds. A plea may not be understood. A noble phrase may sound like meaningless noise. Some soldiers learn useful surrender words, names of lords, and gestures of submission. It is not cowardice to know how to be spared. It is another kind of training. The idea of chivalry hovers over all of this, elegant and uneven. Chivalric culture praised honourable treatment among elites, especially those seen as worthy opponents. It also excluded many people without apology. A knight might protect a rival noble, while peasants, archers, servants, and townspeople received far less ceremony. The beautiful language of honour often had a locked gate. You see a young archer drag forward, his bow gone, his face grey with fear. He has skill, but skill is not always ransom. Perhaps he will be spared because archers are useful. Perhaps he will be stripped and turned away. Perhaps worse. The uncertainty around him is thicker than armour. He has no grand title to place between himself and another man's anger. Hostages are another form of living guarantee. Towns, noble families, and military agreements may involve people handed over to ensure obedience or payment. Their bodies become promises held under watch. A hostage might be treated well if status demands it. Yet he remains a reminder that medieval politics often trusted stone walls less than someone else's child in custody. Survival through captivity also depends on health. A prisoner marching under guard may suffer from untreated wounds, cold, hunger, and humiliation. Chains can injure skin. Crowded holding spaces spread disease. Anxiety eats sleep. Even a valuable captive can decline if neglected. A dead prisoner pays nothing, true. But medieval people were fully capable of mismanaging valuable things. Anyone who has seen a broken wagon understands. There are stories of escapes, clever disguises, bribed guards, loosened stones, and ropes made from bedding. Such tales carry excitement, but escape is dangerous. A recaptured prisoner may lose privileges, limbs, trust, or life. Many survive by patience rather than daring. They write letters, wait for negotiations, and endure the slow indignity of being worth a sum. For the captor, ransom can change a future. A fortunate soldier who takes a wealthy prisoner may gain money, favour, armour, or social advancement. This possibility encourages restraint, but also greed. The battlefield becomes filled with quick calculations. Kill the enemy before he kills you. Spare him if he's worth something. Recognise value while covered in sweat and terror. Simple enough. Yes, very relaxing. You begin to see how medieval survival is shaped by systems beyond skill. Law, custom, class, wealth, family networks, reputation, and language all gather around the wounded and defeated. A man does not stand alone in the moment of capture. He carries his place in society like an invisible shield, or like an empty hand. The poorest fighters rely more heavily on immediate human mercy. That mercy might come from shared faith, pity, exhaustion, practical need, or a captor who simply chooses not to kill. Such choices rarely fill chronicles, but they matter enormously. Somewhere in the quiet margins of history, An unknown man survives because another unknown man looks at him and lowers the blade. The field settles into a new order as prisoners are collected, important captives are separated, common men are searched, wounded enemies plead for water, guards shout, scribes may eventually write names, sums, and obligations, turning chaos into records. The mud does not become clean because ink appears. Still, ink can keep a man alive, and beneath all this, there remains an unsettling truth. Medieval warfare was brutal, but not always blindly brutal. It could be selective, calculated, almost administrative in its violence. It could spare the rich for profit and discard the poor for convenience. It could call this order custom or honour, depending on who was speaking. The captured soldier lowers his eyes, not from shame alone, but from strategy. He breathes slowly. He keeps his hands visible. He says the right name if he has one. He hopes someone hears value in his voice. For some, survival is a ransom letter. For others, it is only mercy. Fear does not arrive politely. It enters the body before thought can lock the door. The mouth dries, the hands become clumsy. The stomach tightens with a private intelligence older than language. In medieval warfare, a soldier survives not because he feels no fear, but because something stronger than fear has already been placed around it. You stand among men waiting for orders, and every face contains a different bargain. Some stare at the ground, some kiss small tokens, some mutter prayers, some inspect weapons they have already inspected. One man jokes about dying before supper, and nobody laughs quite enough. Another speaks of home as if naming it too clearly might break him. The mind needs armour too. Faith is one layer. In a deeply religious medieval world, soldiers often understood danger through the language of sin, salvation, duty, judgment, and divine mercy. Priests could bless armies, hear confessions, carry relics, and remind men that death did not end the story. Whether every soldier believed with equal intensity is doubtful. Yet belief offered structure when the battlefield threatened to become pure chaos. A mainstream historical fact sits firmly here. Medieval armies commonly travelled with clergy, chaplains, or religious specialists who performed rites, offered confession, and supported morale. Scholars at Yale, Oxford, and Notre Dame have examined how warfare and devotion intertwined, especially in crusading, royal armies, and noble households. Prayer was not decoration. It was preparation. You hear a soft chant near a cart. The words rise and fall like breathing. Men gather without pushing. A priest lifts his hand, and the gesture gives the crowd something to watch besides their own thoughts. Fear does not vanish. It becomes shared, named, and placed inside a larger frame. That is no small thing. Rituals help because they turn helplessness into sequence. Kneel, bow, cross yourself, touch the token, repeat the vow, check the strap, drink once, stand. Each action narrows the world into something manageable. The soldier cannot control the enemy, whether commander, arrow, horse, or disease. He can control whether his buckle is fastened and his prayer completed. Leadership is another layer of mental armour. A confident captain can hold men together when their bodies beg to scatter. His voice matters. His posture matters. The fact that he is still visible matters. Men look upward toward banners and sideways toward familiar officers, searching for proof that the army remains a living thing rather than a crowd preparing to run. Commanders understood shame as well as courage. A man might fear dishonour, punishment, lost wages, lost reputation, or the contempt of neighbours. Medieval society could be intimate and unforgiving. Running from battle might not end on the field. It could follow a man home through whispers, legal penalties, or the disappointed silence of people who expected him to stand. This sounds harsh, because it is. Yet it can also keep men alive. If every soldier obeyed only private fear, formations would dissolve quickly. Shared expectations make courage partly communal. You hold because others hold. They hold because you hold. Each man lends the others a fragment of steadiness, whether he feels generous or not. A quirky tidbit glimmers in the shadows of belief. Soldiers sometimes carried written charms, saintly badges, relic fragments, or prayers sewn into clothing, believing these objects might protect them from weapons or death. Some church authorities frowned at the more magical edges of this practice. Naturally, frightened people continued being frightened people, and pocket-sized hope remained popular. You can almost feel one beneath a tunic, wrapped in cloth near the heart. It weighs nearly nothing. Still, the hand finds it. The open scholarly debate concerns motivation among ordinary soldiers. Historians at Princeton, Stanford, and King's College London continue to ask how much men fought from belief, loyalty, coercion, wages, habit, local obligation, or fear of punishment. The answer shifts by period and army. Human motives rarely form neat little columns, unlike commanders who keep requesting them. Battlefield habit may be the most overlooked protection. Repetition teaches the body to act when the mind is crowded. Veterans know how to breathe under pressure, where to place their feet, how to listen for commands, and how not to spend all their strength in the first frantic minutes. Training does not erase terror. It gives terror a set of instructions. The new soldier watches veterans closely. He notices who speaks little, who wastes no movement, who checks the line rather than the sky, who laughs only after danger passes. In that watching, he learns what survival looks like when dressed as ordinary behaviour. Not a grand heroic pose, a man tightening a strap with steady hands. Sound shapes courage. Drums, horns, bells, shouted commands, and songs all help bodies move together. A rhythm can pull feet forward when thoughts lag behind. A banner can gather eyes. A war cry can transform individual dread into collective force. It may not be subtle, but subtlety has limited uses when 300 men must advance through mud. There is also numbness, which no chronicler decorates, but many soldiers must have known. After long marching, hunger, cold, and repeated danger, the mind can become dull at the edges. Fear remains, but it sits farther away. A soldier may do what needs doing because imagination is exhausted. This is not bravery in the painted sense. It is fatigue wearing armour. You feel how obedience can be calming. That sounds unsettling, because obedience can lead men into horror. Yet it also reduces choice when choice becomes unbearable. Stand here, hold this, move when ordered, watch the banner. The soldier who must decide everything alone may freeze. The soldier given a task can survive by shrinking the universe to that task. The commanders rely on this narrowing. They divide men into units, assign places, signal movement, punish disorder, and reward steadiness. Medieval armies varied enormously in professionalism, but the principle remains. Fear must be organised, or fear organises the army itself, and fear is a terrible administrator. Some men fight for comrades more than causes. The abstract lord or distant king may matter less than the familiar shoulder nearby. You do not want to fail the man who shared food with you, repaired your strap, or dragged you from a ditch. This small loyalty can be stronger than speeches. It has a face. Others are held by anger, a burned village, an insult, a dead brother, unpaid wages, or the simple fury of being afraid can harden a man to action. Anger is dangerous because it pushes forward, but it can also make a soldier careless. The survivor must use anger without letting it steer. Easier said than done, naturally. Humans are not famous for emotional bookkeeping. The role of alcohol appears in some accounts, though not always as the wild tale imagines. Drink could steady nerves, warm bodies, mark ritual, or destroy discipline. A little might soften terror. Too much might turn a formation into a tragic tavern with weapons. Commanders knew that courage borrowed from a cup could charge interest at the worst possible time. Sleep matters to the mind as bread matters to the body. a sleepless soldier becomes irritable, slow, suggestible, and haunted by noises. Night watches erode judgment. Dreams may be crowded with home, death, saints, and hoofbeats. In the morning, a tired man must still fasten armour and obey orders. Medieval endurance often means functioning while the mind begs for darkness. There is no modern language of trauma in his mouth, yet the experience is real. Men who survive repeated violence may carry memories that return through smell, sound, weather, or silence. A clanging pot might recall weapons. Mud might recall a fall. A horse's scream might open a field inside the mind. Medieval people explained such burdens through sorrow, sin, melancholy, dreams, or divine testing. You see a soldier breathe slowly before the advance, not gracefully, carefully. He rolls his shoulders. He flexes fingers around the grip. He finds the banner. He glances at the man beside him. That glance says more than a sermon. Are you still here? Yes. Then I am still here too. This is how mental survival works in medieval war. It is not one thing. It is prayer, shame, loyalty, habit, command, rhythm, exhaustion, anger, hope, and the need not to fail the living. It is a charm hidden under cloth, and a captain's shout cutting through dust. It is the body learning to continue while fear speaks in every nerve. The field waits with its usual patience. Men shift their weight. A horn sounds somewhere beyond sight, low and rough, carrying order through the morning air. The line begins to move, not because fear has departed, but because fear has been given a place to walk, and inside each soldier, beneath wool, leather, iron, and prayer, a quieter battle continues. The enemy ahead may be visible. The enemy within is older, closer, and harder to kill. Still, he steps forward. The army survives because many people who are not standing in the front line still keep death at a respectful distance. You see them moving between carts, fires, animals, ropes, barrels, and bundles of cloth. They do not always appear in heroic paintings. They do not always receive names in chronicles, yet without them, the armed men would soon become hungry, filthy, broken, lost, and very impressively helpless. The camp has its own hidden pulse. Cooks stir pots before dawn. Smiths wake iron with hammers. Grooms brush horses that might carry nobles, messengers, scouts, or baggage. Carters curse at wheels, oxen, mud, and fate, often with admirable range. Washerwomen beat cloth near streams when water can be found. Traders open packs of needles, knives, ribbons, salt, onions, cheap cups, and suspiciously durable bread. This is warfare as maintenance. It is not pretty, but it is essential. You smell cooking smoke curling through the damp air. Fat spits in a pan. Oats thicken in a pot. Herbs, if anyone has been lucky, soften the dullness of grain. A cook does not need to swing a sword to influence survival. Bad food weakens men. No food empties them. Warm food can restore a little courage, especially when courage has been sleeping badly in wet wool. A mainstream historical fact rests in the records of household armies and campaign accounts. Medieval forces often travelled with large numbers of non-combatants, including servants, labourers, craftsmen, merchants, women, clergy, drivers, and specialists. Scholars at Oxford, Yale, and the University of Pennsylvania have shown that military communities depended on these support networks for supply, repair, care, and movement. The word camp follower can sound dismissive, as if these people merely drifted behind war like smoke. In truth, many worked hard within its machinery. Some followed for wages, some followed family, some followed trade, some followed because armies gathered money, danger, opportunity, hunger, and chaos into one moving market. It was not an easy life, but peace was not always generous either. You notice a woman mending a torn sleeve with quick, practiced fingers. She's not sentimental about it. The tear must close because cold enters through cloth, and lice enjoy loose seams with indecent enthusiasm. Clothing repair keeps bodies warm, reduces exposure, and preserves dignity. The soldier wearing the sleeve may think his sword matters more. The sleeve quietly disagrees. Smiths are among the camp's most vital figures. Their work is loud, smoky, and urgent. Horseshoes loosen, nails bend, rivets fail. Axe heads chip, spear points twist, buckles break. A snapped hinge on armour can create a deadly gap. A broken cart fitting can halt food for hundreds. The smith's hammer keeps the army moving, though nobody writes love songs to spare rivets. Leatherworkers matter just as much. Straps hold armour in place. Harness keeps horses manageable. Belts carry weapons, pouches, and tools. A leather cord may decide whether a helmet stays on during impact. Survival often depends on small pieces made by tired hands near a fire. While commanders discuss honour under better tents, a quirky tidbit belongs beside the merchants' packs. Medieval camps could attract sellers of dice, cheap jewellery, devotional badges, repaired shoes, stale pastries, and dubious remedies promising strength, luck, healing, or romantic success. War has always attracted business opportunities. Apparently, even at the edge of death, someone is willing to sell you a charm and call it a bargain. The camp is not safe. That must be understood gently, but clearly, non-combatants face violence, theft, disease, hunger, punishment, and exploitation. They live near armed men under stress, often with weak protection from law. Women in camp could be workers, wives, laundresses, sutlers, nurses, servants, traders, or victims of the army's disorder. Their lives require caution as much as endurance. The open scholarly debate concerns how historians should reconstruct these support communities when records often focus on noble commanders and formal soldiers. Researchers at Stanford, Cambridge, and the University of Chicago continue to use payrolls, legal cases, wills, letters, and archaeology to recover the lives of people hidden at the margins. The evidence is fragmentary, but the need they filled is unmistakable. You walk past a cluster of carts guarded more carefully than some men. The baggage train contains food, tents, spare weapons, armour pieces, clothes, bedding, tools, records, money, noble possessions, and personal bundles tied with hope. Losing baggage can destroy morale. It can strip an army of supplies and identity at once. A captured banner is symbolic. A captured flower cart is breakfast disappearing. Carters and drivers understand roads better than many knights. They know where wheels sink, where bridges fail, where slopes become cruel, and where animals need rest. Their knowledge is practical, local, and often ignored until disaster proves them right. A commander may choose the campaign, but a cartwheel negotiates every inch. Grooms keep horses alive through labour that never ends. Feeding, watering, rubbing down, checking hooves, cleaning tack, watching for lameness, calming fear, and protecting animals from theft all require time and skill. A sick horse weakens scouting, transport, prestige, and battle power. The groom touches the war machine at its warmest and most vulnerable point. Messengers carry survival through speed and memory. A command not delivered is a plan dissolved. A warning delayed may become an ambush. Messengers cross dangerous roads, slip through hostile countryside, and search for commanders in confused camps. Their work is not loud, yet entire formations may depend on a rider arriving before the sun changes. There are also guides, interpreters, scouts, and local informants. They know paths, river crossings, markets, wells, marshes, and unfriendly villages. They may serve willingly, reluctantly, or under pressure. Their information can save an army from hunger or lead it into ruin. In medieval warfare, ignorance of ground is not innocence. it is a liability with boots. Spiritual support continues through priests, monks, confessors, and religious attendants. They bury the dead, bless the fearful, comfort the sick, keep records, and remind the living that suffering has meanings beyond the visible. Whether that comfort succeeds depends on the person receiving it. Still, many soldiers need someone to speak over fear when their own words fail. Healers and caregivers move through the camp with herbs, cloth, water, knives, salves, and experience. Some possess formal training. Others rely on household knowledge, battlefield practice, or inherited remedies. They tend burns, cuts, fevers, sores, coughs, stomach trouble, and the quiet collapse of men who have marched too far. Care is not always successful, but neglect is far worse. The economy of camp can become fierce. Prices rise when supplies shrink. Bread becomes precious. Salt becomes argument. A needle can be worth more than pride if a strap is torn. Gambling moves coins from pouch to pouch, and sometimes anger from fist to jaw. Commanders may regulate markets, punish cheating, and still find that hunger makes regulations look decorative. You see children too, sometimes. Pages, servants, apprentices, sons, and local children drawn near by curiosity or need. They carry messages, tend animals, fetch water, polish gear, and learn too early how adults behave under fear. The medieval world did not always separate childhood from labour as gently as modern minds wish. War folded the young into its shadow. These hidden lifelines also carried news. Rumours passed through cooks, traders, washerwomen, priests, and drivers faster than official orders. A camp might learn of an approaching enemy, a shortage, a victory, or a betrayal through the murmuring network around fires and water points. Commanders feared rumours because rumours could weaken courage before a blade was lifted. Yet rumour could also warn, someone sees dust beyond a ridge, someone hears that a bridge is washed out, someone notices local villagers hiding grain. Intelligence does not always arrive stamped and sealed. Sometimes it comes from a woman buying onions who listens better than a nobleman speaks. Soldiers stay alive because these people turn chaos into habit. They cook, mend, guide, carry, shoe, wash, sell, bless, treat, count, repair, and remember. They make an army less like a mob and more like a moving society. Imperfect, unequal, dangerous, and necessary. The fires burn low, and the support camp settles into restless sleep. A pot is covered, a hammer is set down, a horse stamps softly near the lines. Somewhere, a merchant ties his pack shut, somewhere else. A woman hides her coins beneath folded cloth and listens before closing her eyes. The armed men may believe they carry the war. In truth, the war is carried by many hands, most of them rough, tired, and almost invisible. Without those hands, steel rusts, horses founder, wounds fester, stomachs empty, roads confuse, and courage wears through like cheap cloth. Survival is not solitary here. It is cooked, stitched, hammered, traded, washed, guided, and whispered from fire to fire. The weapon in a soldier's hand is not an ornament. It is a problem solved in wood, iron, leather, cord, and habit. You feel that truth in the grip first, where the palm learns the shape of survival. The weapon must be carried for miles, kept from rust, repaired when damaged, and used when the body is tired enough to hate everything it owns. A sword looks noble because later centuries taught the eye to admire it. In the hand, it is simpler and more serious. It is a sidearm, a badge, a tool for cutting, thrusting, guarding, and finishing arguments at dangerous distance. A good sword is balanced enough to move quickly, strong enough to survive contact, and expensive enough to make its owner nervous around thieves. The blade carries status. Yes, but it also carries practical limits. It reaches only so far. It struggles against heavy armour unless used with skill toward gaps, joints, visor openings, and unprotected places. It can cut poorly if the edge dulls. It can be lost in mud or trapped against shields. The sword is useful, respected, and not the universal answer sung by tavern memory. Mainstream research from arms and armour specialists, including scholars connected with Oxford, Leeds, and the Metropolitan Museum's historical collections, confirms that medieval weapons evolved alongside armour and battlefield conditions. The form of a weapon was rarely random. It answered a need, whether that need was reach, impact, armour penetration, low cost, or ease of training. The spear is the quiet monarch of the battlefield. It is cheaper than a sword, longer than a sword, and kinder to a nervous man who prefers enemies at a distance. A village levy can learn basic spearwork more quickly than refined swordplay, though mastery remains difficult. In groups, spears become a warning written in points. A single spear threatens. A line of spears negotiates. You hold one now, and the shaft feels alive with tension. Your hands slide along the wood to adjust reach. The point seems small until it faces a horse, a man, or a gap beneath armour. The spear can thrust, brace, block, prod, and keep danger just beyond the edge of breath. It is not elegant in song, it is excellent in mud. Polearms grow from that same practical imagination. Bills, halberds, glaives, vulges, and other forms mix hooks, blades, spikes, and hammering surfaces into long-handled answers to armoured enemies. They can pull riders, chop into limbs, thrust into openings, and strike with enough force to make metal seem less reassuring. Their names vary by region and period, which is rude of history but useful for specialists. The axe brings a different honesty. It concentrates force along a cutting edge and can punish shields, limbs, doors, and helmets. Some axes are small enough for close work, others, hafted longer, become tools for infantry who need reach and impact together. An axe does not require delicate romance. It arrives with a worker's logic and a very poor bedside manner. The mace and hammer speak to the age of better armour. If a blade cannot easily cut steel, then crush what lies beneath it. A mace can dent metal, break bone, and stun through protection. A warhammer may use a beak, spike, or hammer face to focus force into a cruelly small area. These weapons admit what everyone already knows. Sometimes the body breaks even when the surface holds. A quirky tidbit belongs beside these brutal shapes. Some weapons began life very close to agricultural tools, or at least borrowed their forms from farming and woodland labour. The billhook, familiar to people who cut branches and hedges, helped inspire battlefield bills. Humanity looked at a tool for trimming trees and thought, with typical imagination, that will do nicely against armour. Daggers are the intimate tools of survival. They're carried by many, hidden easily, drawn quickly, and used where longer weapons fail. Against armour, specialised daggers can seek joints and gaps, in the press of bodies, where sword arms jam and spears snap. A dagger may become the last word available. It is not glorious. It is close enough to feel another man's breath. You notice how each weapon creates a different distance. The bow speaks across fields. The spear speaks across a few feet. The sword speaks at arm's length. The dagger whispers. Survival depends on knowing which conversation you have entered and whether you can change it quickly enough. Bows demand a lifetime of the body. Heavy war bows require strength built through practice until bones and muscles adapt. The archer's weapon is not only the bow, it is his back, shoulders, fingers, eye, and rhythm. The arrow itself must be made, stored, fletched, sharpened, bundled, carried, and kept dry. 1,000 arrows are not an idea. They are a supply problem with feathers. Crossbows offer a different bargain. They can deliver powerful shots with less lifetime training than the heaviest bows, though skilled use still matters. Their mechanisms allow a drawn string to be held, giving the shooter time to aim, yet reloading can be slow, and mechanical parts require care. The crossbow is wonderfully persuasive until someone reaches you while you are winding it. The open scholarly debate concerns the exact battlefield effectiveness of particular weapons against different armour under real conditions. Researchers at Cambridge, Yale, and experimental archaeology groups continue to compare surviving weapons, skeletal injuries, fighting manuals, and controlled tests. The tests are valuable, but a calm target in a workshop is not a terrified man slipping in rain. Weapons also shape social order. A sword may mark status, a bow may mark long training, a spear may mark collective infantry strength, a lance may mark the mounted elite. Laws sometimes regulate who can carry certain arms, and rulers may require communities to maintain equipment. Arms are not merely objects. They are statements about obligation, rank, fear, and power. Maintenance is survival disguised as boredom. Blades need sharpening. Wooden shafts need checking. Bowstrings need dryness. Leather grips need repair. Metal heads need secure fittings. Shields need new boards, hide, and straps. Neglect turns a weapon into a decoration at the worst possible moment. A soldier learns to fear a loose rivet almost as much as an enemy. You see a man testing the edge of his blade with his thumb, carefully enough not to cut skin. Another rolls arrows between his palms, checking for warped shafts. A third binds a spearhead more tightly, muttering at the cord as if it personally disappointed him. These are small rituals, but they hold back chaos. A weapon trusted in the hand steadies the heart. Training turns tools into reflex. Manuals from the late medieval period show sophisticated systems of wrestling, swordplay, dagger fighting, polearm use, and armoured combat. Scholars at institutions such as Yale and the University of Chicago have explored these fighting texts as evidence of practiced technique rather than random hacking. Medieval people were violent, yes. They were also thoughtful about how violence worked. Armoured combat can become almost mathematical. Strike the weak place, control the weapon, close the distance, grapple, trip, pin, draw dagger, use the weight of armour against the wearer. This is not the spinning flourish of entertainment. It is closer, slower, and more exhausting. The survivor conserves motion because wasted motion opens doors. Shields remain weapons too. They block, bash, shove, trap, and hide movement. A shield rim can strike a face. A shield can pin an enemy weapon or create space for a thrust. It is mobile architecture with attitude. The man who thinks of it only as protection has missed half the conversation. Improvised weapons appear when order breaks. Stones, knives, tools, broken shafts, fallen helmets, and even fists enter the work. Medieval soldiers do not pause because their preferred equipment is unavailable. They adapt because the battlefield is not a polite tournament clerk waiting to record proper categories. Still, skill alone does not guarantee life. A master may slip, a novice may land a lucky thrust, a fine blade may meet poor footing, a cheap spear may find a noble gap. Weapons create possibilities, not promises. This soldier survives by matching tool, moment, ground, and nerve. He survives by knowing when to strike, when to cover, when to step back, and when to let the man beside him take the angle. The weapon rests in your hand, plain and heavy, no longer romantic. It is made for a world where survival is practical, repetitive, and deeply uncertain. Iron does not care about songs. Wood does not care about courage. Cord does not care about lineage. These things answer only to used care, force, and chance. So the soldier keeps his edge sharp, his shaft sound, his string dry, and his knife within reach. He does not ask a weapon to make him immortal. He asks it for one more opening, one more defended breath, one more moment in which the body remains standing. That is enough. The field grows quiet in a way that does not feel peaceful. The shouting has thinned into scattered voices, then into calls for water, help, names, horses, priests, and missing friends. Smoke hangs where fires have caught in dry brush or broken wagons. Dust settles slowly on helmets, faces, torn cloth, and grass pressed flat by the weight of men. You walk carefully because the ground is no longer simple ground. It is crowded with dropped weapons, snapped shafts, bent arrowheads, shields split open, torn banners, broken tack, and bodies lying at angles sleep would never choose. The earth holds heat from the day, but the air above it cools. Evening touches everything with a softness that feels almost indecent. Victory does not clean the field. Defeat does not empty it. The living must decide what happens to the dead, the wounded, the useful, and the valuable. Medieval warfare does not end when one side flees or yields. It changes occupation. The soldier who survives must now step through consequence. This hour belongs to looters, stretcher-bearers, priests, officers, scavengers, grieving comrades, and men too stunned to understand why their hands are shaking. A mainstream historical fact appears in battlefield archaeology with uncomfortable clarity. Excavations at sites such as Towton, Visby, and other conflict burials reveal not only weapon trauma, but hurried handling of bodies after combat. Researchers associated with British universities and archaeological institutes have shown that aftermath practices depended on weather, status, time, manpower, and fear of disease. The dead did not bury themselves, though chronicles often hurry past that detail. You notice the first wave of searching. Men move with eyes lowered, looking for friends, enemies, pay, rings, knives, helmets, arrows that can be reused, and anything not yet claimed. Some search tenderly, some search efficiently, some pretend the two are different. A battlefield is a place where grief and practical need stand very close together, each trying not to look ashamed. Looting is not a side note. It is part of the economy of war. Armour, weapons, horses, clothing, purses, belts, and household objects carried in baggage all hold value. A soldier may increase his fortune in an hour, if fortune has not already increased someone else's collection of regrets. Commanders may regulate spoils, but regulation walks slowly through mud. The poor dead are stripped quickly. Shoes vanish because shoes matter. Belts vanish because belts carry things. Knives vanish because knives are always useful. A good helmet may pass from a silent man to a breathing one with no ceremony at all. This is brutal, but not senseless. In a world of scarcity, as waste has its own cruelty. You see a man recognize a friend by a patch on a sleeve. He stops moving for a moment. His face changes, then closes. He looks around, perhaps for help, perhaps for witnesses, perhaps for the courage to do the next necessary thing. The body must be moved. The name must be remembered. The belongings must be guarded, if guarding is possible. A quirky tidbit belongs here, though it is a melancholy one. Medieval battlefields could become strange salvage yards for local people, who gathered metal, arrows, cloth, and equipment once armies moved on. Children might later find bones, buckles, coins, or arrowheads in fields that return to ploughing. History can sleep beneath wheat, which is either poetic or deeply unfair. Burial brings its own hierarchy. Important bodies may be recovered, identified, washed, carried home, placed in churches, or buried with ceremony. Lesser soldiers may enter pits, trenches, churchyards, or hasty graves near the field. Some bodies remain exposed longer than anyone wants. Weather, distance, enemy presence, and sheer numbers can defeat reverence. The smell changes as the day fades. Blood darkens. Horses lie heavy in the grass. Opened earth mixes with smoke and trampled plants. Flies gather with obscene patience. Men who have endured weapons may turn away from this quieter assault on the senses. There is no shame in that. The aftermath asks for a different kind of hardness. Priests and clerics move among the dead when they can. They speak prayers, mark names, comfort survivors, and try to place souls within the mercy of heaven. The words matter because the bodies are difficult to bear. Ritual tells the living that death has not reduced a person entirely to weight. It gives shape to loss, even when the grave is shallow and rushed. The open scholarly debate concerns how accurately chronicles describe casualty numbers and battlefield suffering. Historians at Stanford, Cambridge, and the University of Chicago continue to compare written accounts with archaeology, administrative records, and terrain studies. Chroniclers might exaggerate for moral force, political praise, or dramatic memory. Bones are quieter, but they can be stubborn witnesses. You sense how numbers fail here. 10,000 dead sounds vast and distant. One man face down beside his broken shield feels closer to truth. A battlefield is not experienced as statistics. It is experienced as individual forms, each one interrupting the eye. A hand still gripping grass, a boot half buried in mud, a helmet rolled open like an emptied shell. The wounded who remain unfound fear the night. Darkness brings cold, animals, thieves, and the terrible possibility of being mistaken for dead. Some call until their voices fail. Some stay silent because enemies may still wander. Others are pinned beneath horses, shields, or bodies. Alive, but unable to prove it loudly enough. Survival now depends on being noticed. Exposure kills with patience. A man who lives through a wound may die lying cold in wet clothes. Blood loss steals warmth. Shock clouds thought. Rain can turn mercy into misery. Those carried to shelter gain a chance. Those left outside bargain with time. The battlefield does not care who fought well. There is also the matter of pursuit. Defeated men fleeing the field may die in greater numbers than those who fell during the main clash. Cavalry, fresh reserves, local enemies, or angry victors can turn retreat into slaughter. A soldier who runs must choose roads, woods, rivers, ditches, and hiding places quickly. He may discard armor to move faster, then regret being unprotected. Survival becomes a foot race with memory erased by panic. Capturing fugitives can be profitable, but killing them can be faster. The difference may depend on rank, discipline, exhaustion, command, and mood. Medieval war often places life inside such unstable hands. The man who survives a battle line may perish at a stream crossing because his legs fail, or because someone behind him wants his cloak. As night gathers, the field becomes a place of small fires and darker shapes. Men carry torches. Shadows lengthen grotesquely across the dead. Officers try to count banners, captains, horses, prisoners, missing men, and usable equipment. Counting is a form of control. It does not undo chaos, but it lets authority speak in lists. The survivors begin telling the first versions of the story. They argue over who stood firm, who fled, who struck whom, who saved a banner, who found a breach, who lost a horse, who vanished in the crush. Memory begins working immediately, tidying terror into sequence. It leaves things out. It always leaves things out. A soldier may clean his weapon with hands that tremble only when the task is nearly done. He may wash his face and find another man's blood in his beard. He may eat because hunger returns, shameless as a dog. The mind may feel insulted by the body's needs. How can one chew bread near so much death? Yet the living must eat. That is their strange duty. Some men sleep too deeply, others cannot close their eyes. A noise in the dark may startle them upright. A dream may return them to a single moment, replayed without permission. Medieval people may not name trauma as modern people do, but they know haunted sleep, melancholy, visions, vows, pilgrimages, penance, and silence. The battle continues differently inside the survivor. The field itself will change. Grass grows back. Rain washes shallow stains into soil. Crows leave. Farmers return if they can. Ploughs catch on metal. Bones rise years later under frost, flood, or curiosity. A place of terror becomes pasture, road, boundary, memory, or legend. Time covers much. It does not erase everything. You stand under a dimming sky while the last carts move toward camp. The defeated are gone, captured, hidden, or still. The victors speak more softly now, as if triumph has become heavy in their mouths. Somewhere a priest continues praying. Somewhere a man searches for a brother and refuses to stop. The brutal reality is that survival does not end with victory. A soldier must survive the field's appetite after the fighting, the cold after sweat, the memory after noise, and the work of living among the dead. He must step over the proof of what almost happened to him, again and again, until the darkness takes shape around it, and beneath the quiet fields, the day begins sinking into history, not cleanly, not completely, but slowly, like iron settling into earth. The road home begins without celebration for most soldiers. It begins with sore feet, damp clothing, smoke in the hair, and a silence that follows the army even when men speak. You walk away from the place of fighting, yet the body does not understand departure at once. The shoulders remain tight. The ears still search for horns, hooves, and shouting. The hand still checks for a weapon that is already there. Survival is not the same as safety. That is one of the quieter truths of medieval war. A soldier may leave the field alive and still be claimed by fever, infection, debt, punishment, hunger, or memory. He may have kept his skin closed, only to find that his luck has been spent somewhere inside him. The road is long, and roads ask questions slowly. The returning column is smaller than the one that marched out. Men notice empty places without always naming them. A joke begins, then fails because the man who would have answered is not there. A horse carries a rider's spare gear instead of the rider. A shield hangs from a cart, split across the painted face. The living move past these signs with practiced restraint. A mainstream historical fact stands in the records of wages, musters, pardons, and petitions. Medieval soldiers often returned to ordinary life carrying unpaid wages, wounds, captured goods, legal obligations, and uncertain prospects. Historians at Oxford, Cambridge, and American universities have shown that war connected the battlefield to villages, towns, courts, churches, and family economies. A campaign did not end cleanly at the edge of a field. You reach a village road where smoke rises from hearths. Dogs bark first. Children stare. Women and old men look from doorways, counting faces before they greet them. The returning soldier may bring coin, armour, scars, a stolen belt, a foreign knife, or nothing but exhaustion. He may also bring fleas, fever, and stories no one truly wants during supper. The body announces its costs in private ways. A limp becomes permanent. His shoulder never lifts quite right. A scar tightens in cold weather. Fingers lost to blade or infection alter work forever. For a farmer, carpenter, mason, archer, or smith, an injured hand can threaten livelihood. Survival must still earn bread. The quirky tidbit here is almost tender. Some veterans kept small battlefield objects as tokens, not always grand trophies, but buckles, beads, knives, arrowheads, or bits of cloth. A thing carried home could become proof that the nightmare happened. It could also become a story object, taken out near a fire when someone asked the wrong question with too much curiosity. A soldier may return with pay, though pay is a slippery creature. Wages can be delayed, reduced, disputed, or swallowed by debts owed to merchants, captains, or companions. Loot may help, if he kept it and if no one stronger claims it. A ransom share could change a life. More often, survival brings modest gain, uncertain money, and a body that now knows too much. The open scholarly debate concerns how deeply wartime experience reshaped ordinary medieval communities. Researchers at Yale, Princeton, and the University of Chicago continue to examine wills, court cases, chronicles, letters, and local records for signs of veterans' lives. Some men reintegrated into work and family. Others appear in records through violence, poverty, pilgrimage, disputes, or service in later campaigns. You see how the household receives him. A wife may embrace him, then notice the wound he hid badly. A mother may touch his face as if checking whether it is truly warm. A child may hang back from a father made strange by beard, smell, scars, and silence. Home has continued without him. That can be comforting. It can also feel like betrayal. Food tastes different at home. Bread is not rationed by a quartermaster. Water comes from a known well. A bed has a roof above it and no stranger's elbow in the ribs. These are luxuries so ordinary they seem almost insulting. The returning soldier sleeps, but sleep may not hold him gently. Dreams have their own campaigns. There is no modern clinic waiting with careful language. There may be family care, herbal treatment, a local healer, a barber surgeon, a priest, a monastery infirmary, or neighbours with advice of mixed quality. A wound that heals badly can shape years. Pain becomes weather inside the flesh. The body remembers seasons by ache. Churches receive many kinds of survivors. Some come with gratitude and some come with guilt. Some pay for prayers for dead companions. Some make vows, go on pilgrimage, give offerings, or seek pardon for things done under banners. Medieval people often placed moral weight on violence, even when society required it. The soul, like the body, might need tending. You hear a priest speak softly in a small stone church. Wax smoke thickens the air. The floor is cold beneath tired knees. The soldier bows his head and perhaps sees again the field, not in full, but in flashes. A broken spear, a friend calling, a horse falling sideways. The mind does not always choose whole memories. It keeps shards. Some survivors become storytellers, around winter fires, in taverns, at markets, or in lordly halls. They shape terror into accounts others can bear. They may enlarge courage, soften panic, hide shame, or turn confusion into sequence. This is not always lying. It is how human memory builds a room around what would otherwise remain weather. Others say little. Silence can be protection. It can also be loneliness. A man who cannot explain what he has seen may become difficult to reach. He may flinch at sudden sounds, avoid crowds, drink too much, pray more than before, or stare long at fields where nothing is happening. The living world can feel too calm after violence. It has the nerve to continue. Some return to war because peace offers less. A professional soldier may know campaign life better than stable labour. Wages, plunder, loyalty, habit, lack of land, legal trouble, or simple restlessness can pull him back toward the road. Survival can become a skill with no peaceful market. The man who stayed alive once may be asked to risk that talent again. You begin to understand the answer to the old question more fully. How did soldiers stay alive? They did not do it through courage alone. They stayed alive through equipment, food, discipline, rank, luck, comrades, care, obedience, terrain, caution, and the unseen labour of many hands. They stayed alive by becoming useful to a system that was often indifferent to their names, yet some part of survival remains mysterious. Two men stand side by side, and one falls. A strap holds, a buckle breaks, a horse turns left instead of right, a fever passes over one body and settles in another. Medieval soldiers understood skill, but they also understood fortune. They lived in a world where chance felt personal, and perhaps it still does. The returned soldier hangs his weapon near the door. Maybe he keeps it clean. Maybe he avoids touching it. Outside, the village settles into evening. Cattle shift in their pens. A cart creaks along the lane. Smoke rises blue from thatched roofs. The sounds are ordinary and thus subtle, and therefore almost sacred. He sits by the fire while others sleep. The room glows softly around him. His scars pull in the warmth. His hands, once locked around shield, spear, reins or blade, rest open on his knees. He has come back from the place where men become names or vanish without them. He is alive, though not unchanged. And perhaps that is the final brutal reality of medieval warfare. Staying alive was not a single act. It was a chain of fragile mercies, practical habits, hard choices, and accidents that somehow held until the road bent homeward. The survivor does not always speak the truth plainly. Sometimes he simply breathes and lets the fire answer for him. Now the night softens around the road, around the field, around the old stones and shuttered houses. You can let the images grow quieter. The helmets are set down. The horses lower their heads. The carts stop creaking in the dark. No more commands are needed here. Only breath remains, slow and steady, moving through the room like a small tide. The soldier's world drifts farther away, not erased, but softened at the edges. The mud dries. The smoke thins. The voices that called across the field fade into the murmur of wind against grass. You may imagine the road under moonlight, empty now, silvered and calm. Somewhere beyond it, a village sleeps without knowing the whole weight of what has returned. Somewhere, a door is barred gently, a fire sinks into embers, a cup rests beside a bed. The world becomes simple again, not because it has forgotten suffering, but because night has laid its cool hand across it. The old questions remain, but they no longer demand an answer. How does a man survive fear? How does he carry memory? How does ordinary life receive him back? Perhaps there is no single reply. Perhaps there is only the long breath, the warm room, the fading road, and the quiet mercy of another dawn not yet arrived. So let the banners lower, let the armour rest, let the field return to grass beneath the slow turning stars. The story does not close like a gate. It settles like dust after footsteps, soft and patient, waiting for sleep to gather what words can no longer hold. And perhaps, in the deepest quiet, survival is simply this: one more breath, one more night, one more gentle silence. Now the night softens around the road, around the field, around the old stones and shuttered houses. You can let the images grow quieter. The helmets are set down. The horses lower their heads. The carts stop creaking in the dark. No more commands are needed here. Only breath remains, slow and steady, moving through the room like a small tide. The soldier's world drifts farther away, not erased, but softened at the edges. The mud dries. The smoke thins. The voices that called across the field fade into the murmur of wind against grass. You may imagine the road under moonlight, empty now, silvered and calm. Somewhere beyond it, a village sleeps without knowing the whole weight of what has returned. Somewhere, a door is barred gently, a fire sinks into embers, a cup rests beside a bed. The world becomes simple again, not because it has forgotten suffering, but because night has laid its cool hand across it. The old questions remain, but they no longer demand an answer. How does a man survive fear? How does he carry memory? How does ordinary life receive him back? Perhaps there is no single reply. Perhaps there is only the long breath, the warm room, the fading road, and the quiet mercy of another dawn not yet arrived. So let the banners lower, let the armour rest, let the field return to grass beneath the slow turning stars. The story does not close like a gate. It settles like dust after footsteps, soft and patient, waiting for sleep to gather what words can no longer hold. And perhaps, in the deepest quiet, survival is simply this: one more breath, one more night, one more gentle silence.